Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed.
Airwolf for the win. Heck yeah.
Welcome to the Space and Rocket Review. You two girls, tell your friends. Space and Rocket Review. You in the hat. One night only. Space and Rocket Review. We'll see if that opening music gets the VOD angy or something. We'll see. I have a theory that I'm willing to risk the VOD on to test. Anyway,
Discovery, go at throttle.
December 9th, 2024. It's Monday. This is the Space and Rocket Review. I have a plethora of space stuff before you. A plethora. Anyway, it should be good. None on Tuesday. Wait, what? It's not Tuesday. One night only, every night. Space and Rocket Review. Oh, all right. Cool. Okay, so I want to start out with a couple of things here. If you guys missed it, I would like to remind everybody here that NSF had a NASA space flight. My buddies over at NSF, particularly Mr. Yak, had a hey, Hokey, Tier 3117. Hey, that's a funny number. Now say your favorite quote. You know the one. I need a weapon. Right this way. So, Jack, Mr. Yak, had an interview with Don Pettit, who is up at the ISS right now. This interview was about 5 hours ago. Actually, almost 6 at this point. My favorite line, Jack Meyer, this is Mission Control, Houston. Please call station for a voice check. Dude. How crazy is that? Oh, Jack face. Jack, Mr. Yak. So he got to talk to Don Pettit. Just live up the like.
The station hears you loud and clear, Jack.
Fantastic. Don, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us while you're in space. We have a limited amount of time here, and I just want to jump right into questions if that's all right with you.
NSF interviewed a guy flying around in space. I'm just putting it out there. An interview in the cupola too, and then in the later parts here, they're like that.
More.
You know, just the Earth, just. If you guys haven't seen this, go and check it out. It's pretty awesome. Can you link it for the lazy? Oh, absolutely. Mr. Yak. Canadian moose during mating season, and now the yak. Look! Proof of concept for a NASA administrator town hall from space, maybe? Perhaps. I'm telling you, we're in a very, very weird timeline. Stranger things have happened. But anyway, guys, I wanted to tell you about that if you hadn't seen it. Go check it out. It's a pretty awesome little interview. NSF interviewing people in space live 6 hours ago. Anyway, that's pretty awesome. Go check it out. It was an awesome interview. Super cool. Don Pettit's a super cool dude. He is an elder, and I don't mean that in any ageist type of way. He's an elder astronaut. He's been around. He's been in the astronaut corps for a very long time. He helped build the ISS. Flew on the shuttle. Flew on Soyuz. He hasn't flown on Dragon. Maybe he will someday. Who knows? But yeah, really cool stuff. Stevery, what's going on? When do we get a 24/7 live stream of the Mars Base Alpha from NSF? Well, let's talk to Das and Elon, and we'll see what we can do. Yeah, yep. Almost 70. Just up doing his thing on the ISS. Now, that did happen this morning. The other thing that happened this morning is something that you might appreciate. Booster 14 down at Starbase was put on the pedestal over the weekend. You know what your problem is? You're putting the booster on a pedestal. That's what your problem is. But it isn't a problem because it static fired this morning. Oh. Shut down. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. All right. Any news on Booster 12? It's sitting outside, John, believe it or not. I vented to that. Yep. We had a good static fire, at least a seemingly a good static fire here on Booster 14. This is for Flight 7. This will be the booster for Flight 7. It seems to be working well. Now keep in mind, oh man, dude, you see the rippling that's going on there? This thing is so loud, it's just perturbing the clouds around it from the propellants. Yeah, the ripples that you're seeing is like visualized sound. The sound is so violent, it's actually, you can actually see it. Like, woo, that's pretty spicy. It's pretty spicy down right in this area right here. You see what I'm talking about? Like right in here, not here or here so much, but like right here. That's pretty cool. The rumble. The flames did come out of the bottom. The pointy end wasn't up though, Yannick. So, I mean, there was no pointy end put on the front because we weren't flying today, I guess. So, yeah, that's. And then we got a shot up the business end here. Looking up the business end during shutdown, which is just impressive. Not bad. Not bad. Will Starship be the first ever need repair because of the sound? No. Many pads have been damaged by sound waves. Many rockets have been damaged by sound waves. Look up STS-1. Yeah. Why can't NASA have as good a rockets as these? Because they don't decide to. Then that's the problem. You have to decide to. You have to decide you want to make this. I think NASA should decide that they should make this. I've talked a lot about that, dude. I don't want to do that anymore. I've talked a lot about it. It's a matter of choice, believe it or not. Oh, neat, Gully. That's cool. So Booster 14 is basically the same as 12 and 13. Hoagie, I actually asked Alex about this on Flame Trench the other day. What's the difference? It looks pretty much the same, but Alex said there's so many small differences on this thing that he can't even keep track of it. So, I mean, take that for what it's worth. If Alex says there's a lot of small changes, yep, no, I believe him. It's probably a lot of iteration, but it seemingly doesn't look that far off. But I'll bet you there's a lot of small things here. No big block modifications. You big block? Displacement. How is that staircase not melting like a Salvatore Dali painting? Because all the hot stuff is down here. These posts are made out of steel and concrete. You're going to have to sink a lot of heat into that before it starts melting this. It's out of the way of the turbulent flow, to be honest with you. All the turbulent flow is going down here. That's why it's protected down here. If the staircase was unshielded right here, yeah, you'd have a big problem. But up here, believe it or not, it's out of the jet, so not as bad. No, too bad, Bree. It is inevitable. How long do we get an EUS with an Orion on top of a super heavy booster? I don't know. Yarg, say yes. Tell her to say yes. So, yeah, Booster 14 static fire. We are well on the way for another Starship flight. I've been hearing January. I've been hearing January 11th. That was because of some paperwork that got filed. I think it was FCC paperwork. I think the news cycle is so ridiculously fast. I actually can't remember off the top of my head. Should probably take notes next time. Should probably take notes next time. But you know, maybe whatever. Have you covered the difference between pad A and pad B and why? Well, Journey, that, you know, I haven't. I haven't covered a lot of the differences between the pads. Mostly because I can't, like, I've been trying to figure it out. Like, okay, so pad A is a pedestal style pad. Not the first time that's been done. Saturn 1B did something like that. Redstone did something like that. Like having a launch stool. Saturn 1B did, like I said, Saturn 1B did. Saturn 5 did that to an extent, only they moved the entire pad. They moved the entire pedestal and all of its equipment, all of its accoutrement. Accoutrement, what is that? So, pad B is a more, like a launch deck with a flame diverter below it. It ends up being much more, I would say, much more conventional in design. Something like you'd see with Titan or Atlas or even Falcon 9. But Journey, like, I've noticed some things about that, but I really don't know the exact needs for having a diverter down there versus just the pedestal. My guess is reusability, but who knows? We could talk more about that a little bit later. I want to get through the actual space news before we get into, like, talking op-ed stuff. NASA requested permission to go lights out, and in document they said January 11th, Flight 7 for Starship. They need lights out to calibrate the camera for thermal imaging of reentry. Oh, there you go. Have they changed where the antenna is so that it doesn't fall over again? Not to my knowledge, no. Yeah, exactly, Reaver. I need to see Pad B more completed before I can get a good grasp on, like, what that looks like. Anyway. Cool. So let's just, I'm sorry, I had a notification pop up. Was the antenna confirmed to be bumped? I will say, Morgal, that the antenna is my theory. That's my theory. I'm pretty sure that's what went wrong. If that's a positional antenna, it being bent like that is going to be relaying incorrect positional information. Yeah, you probably wouldn't want to do that. Probably wouldn't want to try to land when the thing that guides you is pointed in the wrong direction. Yeah, not good. I thought Elon confirmed it was the antenna. Fractal, I'm not 100% sure. I saw the antenna bent, like right after Flight 6. We looked at NSF's footage and I saw the thing bent. I'm like, that's definitely the problem there. I did some research and asked around. A lot of people that have said weather, maybe. INS and GPS don't agree equals abort. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. If your reference frame is not reference framing, you should probably, that means the rocket knows where it is and it knows where it isn't at the same time. That's not good. You don't want that. You want it to know where it is so it knows where it isn't, not knows where it is and where it isn't at the same time. Bad call. You don't want that. You're gonna have a bad time. If the missile knows where it is, well, it knows where it isn't, gonna have a bad time. If the missile knows where it is, so it knows where it isn't, not gonna have a bad time. Gonna have a good time. Right? That made sense. It made sense. NASA sent a letter to the FAA requesting that date. Yeah, David, that's what sounds right. Yeah, it was some weird document. So I want to say FCC. Like, it wasn't FAA or like launch license or anything. Like, yeah, it was some obscure document. But yeah, I mean, even if you just kind of look at the hardware, Officer Murtaugh, look at the hardware. It's over. No, even if you like just kind of look at the state of things. Well, the booster is obviously ready to go. I mean, it needs the hot staging ring, so it's probably going to go back to the. It's probably going to take one more trip back to Starbase, you know, at some point, right? I don't know, Nova. I'm not going to be the one that's disappointed when you go down there and it's not there. Depends on a good time for who. Yeah, I guess. Oh gosh, I recently watched the missile video. Yeah. It knows where it is, so it knows where it isn't. If it subtracts from where it is from where it isn't, it has developed a deviation and its variation, which is called air. Yep. Pizza good time, French fries bad time. If you pizza when you should French fry, gonna have a bad time. Anyway. Stop. No, you stop. You know what? You know what we're going to do now? You know what time it is? Just in case you were confused, we must review. Go away.
The missile knows where it is at all times. It knows this because it knows where it isn't. By subtracting where it is from where it isn't, or where it isn't from where it is, whichever is greater, it obtains a difference or deviation. The guidance subsystem uses deviations to generate corrective commands to drive the missile from a position where it is to a position where it isn't, and arriving at a position where it wasn't, it now is. Consequently, the position where it is now the position that it wasn't, and it follows that the position that it was is now the position that it isn't. In the event that the position that it is not the position that it wasn't, the system has acquired a variation. The variation being the difference between where the missile is and where it wasn't. If variation is considered to be a significant factor, it too may be corrected by the GEA. However, the missile must also know where it was. The missile guidance computer scenario works as follows. Because a variation has modified some of the information the missile has obtained, it is not sure just where it is. However, it is sure where it isn't, within reason, and it knows where it was. It now subtracts where it should be from where it wasn't, or vice versa. And by differentiating this from the algebraic sum of where it shouldn't be and where it was, it is able to obtain the deviation and its variation, which is called error.
Oh, yeah, now I get it. Just for review, just in case anybody was confused. That's why they didn't attempt to do this again. Yeah, that will be on the test. Thank you, Nova. It's exactly what you were thinking. Yeah, it's not hard. Hey, Mank, 93 months. You could tell that it's a missile because of the way it is. Yeah, and that's pretty neat. Yeah. Anyway, all right, more space news. Let's go. All right, so Komatsu. The challenge to space. A couple of you guys have linked this to me, but I figure I'd share it in the official EJ Space and Rocket Review capacity here. Komatsu is a heavy equipment manufacturer. Personally, I have a favorite Komatsu, just in case. It's a bulldozer. That's my favorite Komatsu. Uh, yeah, the Komatsu D335A, obviously. That's the best bulldozer ever. Yeah. Yeah. That's that. Yeah, no, that's the best. It's like one of the best bulldozers ever made. It won the Academy Award for best bulldozer ever made. Actually, that's false. Caterpillar D9s are better. I mean, if we're gonna go there, Cat D9's where it's at. All right, we're gonna talk bulldozers. Cat D9, baby. Okay. Liebherr 9800 is the best? No. Anyway, check this out. Komatsu's development of lunar construction equipment is contributing to the realization of humankind's dream. Out of this world beginnings. In 2019, the United States launched the Artemis program with the aim of reestablishing a manned presence on the moon for the first time since 1972. More than 40 countries are cooperating in this international endeavor. In coordination with this program and with the support of public and private sectors, MLIT's Space Construction Innovations Project is developing innovative technology for automated and remotely operated space construction. You know what? I'm doing this in missile voice. The Space Construction Innovation Project is one target of the Stardust program. Under the leadership of Japan's Ministry of Land, Infrastructure, Transportation, and Tourism, MLIT for short, and Ministry of Education, Culture, Sports, Science, and Technology, MEXT. This project is researching and developing autonomous construction technologies with the objective of building a base for long-term stays on the lunar surface. We at Komatsu are responsible for research and development of the lunar construction machines for the project. With the goal of completing our project goals by the early 2030s, we currently are pursuing extensive R&D for lunar construction machinery technologies and testing. Though completely unknown territory for Komatsu, we are steadily advancing towards our destination. Getting to know the workspace. I want you to explore the space. Explore the space. Explore the space. The lunar environment is completely different from that on Earth. Designing construction machinery that can operate in lunar surface conditions has demanded rethinking what form construction machines will take and how they will move on the moon. However, testing and verifying designs seem to be a near impossible task. Faced with this challenge, we decided to utilize digital twin star technology. This technology enables the recreation of the lunar environment and our lunar construction machines in a virtual space. In this digitally twinned world, we create a variety of challenging construction scenarios, including excavation and simulated machine operation. Through this process, we can clearly identify technical challenges. Challenges, and more challenges. Low gravity operation. Construction machines work with no problem on our planet where they leverage their own weight to effectively move or excavate Earth. However, on the moon, gravity is only about 1/6 that of Earth's, resulting in the weight of the same machines becoming lighter. This makes both machine stability and application of sufficient excavation force to the lunar ground impossible. Komatsu has explored a variety of ideas to improve lunar excavation performance. The solution is to increase the length of contact between the machine and the lunar surface. Through our digital twin simulations, we have confirmed that the increased length of surface contact successfully improves the stability of the machine and significantly increases the excavation force without increasing the weight of the machine. This makes it possible to achieve equivalent performance on the moon despite low gravity. Cool. Dude, look at that thing. Extreme environments. Once the problem of the moon's lower gravity is solved, we will still need to consider other challenges, such as finding a new power source. On the airless surface of the moon, it would be impossible for an internal combustion engine to operate on the moon's surface because there is no oxygen for combustion. Electrically powered machines seem the obvious solution, with solar power generation supplying the electricity. But the answer is not that simple. Temperature changes on the surface of the moon are extreme. They can soar to around 110 centigrade, 230 Fahrenheit, and plummet to minus 170 C. I have no idea what that is in Fahrenheit. Okay. Developing electric construction machinery to perform in this environment is no easy task, but Komatsu is tackling issues one by one as they appear. Using thermal control and other electrification technologies, we are engineering solutions. Craters, slopes, and regolith. After we succeed in designing construction machines with the capability to move and operate on the moon, another big challenge is navigating the harsh terrain. Craters formed by meteorite impacts, steep slopes of 20 to 30 degrees, and hills covered with lunar soil called regolith, which is the loose mix of rock fragments, mineral particles, and dust, make both travel and operational stability quite difficult. To overcome this challenge, Komatsu is studying new undercarriage structures such as the multi-crawler system. Moving forward with design verification and improvement. Step by step, we are verifying our designs and solutions to ensure that our construction machines will perform reliably in the lunar environment. Every day, we run simulations of actual work in a digital twin environment and then refine and evolve our designs. Komatsu's simulation of a huge number of patterns is bringing lunar construction machines into clearer focus and heightening the precision of the design. Even here on Earth, we are tackling and verifying construction work on the moon as realistically as possible with the aim of making those simulations a reality. Our accumulated technology will pave the way for the development of the lunar surface and lead to a future where humanity takes a new step forward. Right now, our dreams of space are becoming a reality. Cool. Look at that. Lunar dump truck. Lunar excavator. All right. That's actually super cool. That's awesome. This is the kind of stuff we should be thinking about. Yeah, launch this in a Starship, man. Let's go.
Discovery, go at throttle up.
Kenwa Mabuni. 37-month resub. No hydraulics. It seems to be all electromechanical. Hydraulics won't play nice with the low gravity, long story short. It's really more difficult to get air bubbles out of the system with hydraulics. So, I mean, you could. If you have a leak, you're basically boned. But if you have a leak in real life, you're also basically boned, even here on Earth. It would probably be better to just go with straight electromechanical servos. Or whatever they're using. That's superbly cool, actually. Good. Sweet. This is the kind of stuff we should be thinking about, man. What's the construction equipment on the moon look like? What does a crane on the moon look like? An excavator, a dump truck. If we're really going to go into that next level, that's the kind of stuff we should be figuring out. That's cool that Komatsu is doing that. European Space Agency news? What is this? Will hydraulic fluid be able to flow at minus 200 C? If you use the right viscosity, sure. I've already seen that. W. Yep. What is this? Italy begins development of nuclear reactor for lunar settlements. Italy's National Space Agency, ASI, has kicked off its Selene project, which aims to develop small nuclear fission reactors to power settlements on the moon. Hey, all right. In 2023, the Selene, Sistema Energetico Lunare con l'Energia Nucleare, moon energy system with nuclear power. Yeah. The project was among the winners of an ASI funding call aimed at developing alternative energy solutions for the moon that overcome the limitations of traditional technologies. Sì, Italia. Grazie, grazie. The project focuses on developing the Moon Energy Hub, MNN, which would provide a stable energy source for future lunar settlements, including small nuclear fission reactors called surface nuclear reactors, SNURs. Cool. Italy is strongly committed to the exploration of the moon and the creation of a permanent lunar base, said Angelo Olivieri, head of science missions at ASI. Regarding energy supply, the current available solutions, based on the use of solar energy, do not allow us to achieve the challenging energy. Should I stop? No? Okay, cool. Challenging energy goals for the future activities on the lunar surface. Due to the alternation of 14 days of light and 14 days of darkness. The search for an adequate technological solution represents a field of great interest for ESI. Yeah, okay, cool. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep doing that. Question? But the real question is, will we have the drink? Question? The ASI-funded Selene project is led by the Italian National Agency for New Technologies, Energies, and Sustainable Economic Development, ENIE, with contributions from the Department of Energy at the Polytechnic University of Milan and Thales Alenia Space Italia. In addition to advancing the development of the reactors, the 3-year project will focus on key technologies such as sensors, automation, and wireless power transmission. Hold up! Hold up! In addition to advancing and developing of the reactors, the 3-year project will focus on key technologies such as sensors, automation, and wireless power transmission. Are we making Tesla coils on the moon? We are checking. Roger, we are checking. Or microwaves. Yeah, that wouldn't be as fun, make, but yeah, probably the solution that they're looking at. You probably don't want a giant Tesla coil on the moon. Even though, I mean, actually though, at the same time, you know, you're pretty much in vacuum on the surface of the moon. A Tesla coil for wireless power transmission actually isn't the stupidest idea. You just want to make sure, you know, it doesn't like arc to you. That would be bad. They're going to partner up with Ferrari. No. Bad idea, Darkwu. We want it to actually work. Arcs in a vacuum. Yeah, that's a good point, Jonas. I'd be more worried. What I meant was like arcing through the lunar regolith. So like if you kick up a lot of dust, you're putting dust around your Tesla coil, and it could arc through the regolith to you. Probably won't, but also it could. Right? Like, I also think that's super cool. Baron, I don't care about that. I'm not sharing that. Anyway, researchers will also develop decommissioning plans, enhance the supply chain, and create a roadmap for industrializing the system. Cool. Neat. A lot of lunar news coming out. Good stuff. Speaking of going to the moon, now the NASA EGS X account has been quite busy posting pictures of the VAB because what they're planning on doing is getting core stage 2, the core that's going to be used for the Artemis 2 mission. They're going to move it into High Bay 2 for final processing. Ferrari may win the constructors next year. Yes. Next year is the year. That's right. That is the year they fix everything. Yes. Yes, that is right. So we got some really cool pictures inside of the VAB. Check this one out. Oh, hello. Cool. Good stuff. Sweet. Teams with EGS will soon lift SLS into High Bay 2 of the vehicle assembly building. For Artemis 3 and beyond, the newly outfitted High Bay will support vertical assembly of the core stage, which will arrive in segments from NASA Michoud. For Artemis 2, this High Bay will support completion of vertical work on the core stage before it is stacked on the mobile launcher, allowing teams to continue solid rocket booster stacking simultaneously. This operation also allows teams to fit check the newly assembled core stage support platform. Cool. Read about High Bay 2 work here. I want to see the pictures. Yeah, see? Core stage. Yeah. Futurenic. This is the core stage holder in High Bay 2 right here. They're basically going to stack it in a gigantic holder to make sure that you can do final assembly. That is a picture, a much older picture of it though. Futurenic is a contractor out of Michigan, by the way. They're a AAA supplier for the auto industry and basically industrial equipment. Ismic, 48-month resub. Thank you. That's awesome, dude. Super cool. Yeah, they have a short YouTube video that shows them putting it together. I'm getting rid of that. So the core stage sits on the square holder? Yes. Precisely. That's right, it goes in the square hole. Yeah, this structure, based off of the flanges that are right here and stuff, this structure is going to be a lot bigger. Yeah, see that last platform? Okay, or you could just not show me. That's fine. That last platform that's actually in this picture right here is going to stack on top. So this structure is going to go up a little ways, which is actually super cool. Is it like how the ETs were housed in the VAB? It's probably derived from that, Joe, if I had to guess. Probably derived from that. Yeah. So, yeah, good stuff, man. Good stuff. Okay. Got a little bit more of the quick stuff here. Hold on, let me just check Starbase Live real quick. I don't see anything up there on Starbase Live. Anyway, so the next thing is coming from Sierra Space here. Check this out. Sierra Space contributed key components to the Europa Clipper spacecraft, which is headed to Jupiter's moon, Europa. Delivered items includes 2 solar array drive actuators, SATAs, thermal louvers, and a cover system for the mass specs instrument. That's cool. Sierra showed all the stuff that they made. See, like, you know, if you know Sierra Space, you know that it's like, you think Dream Chaser, right? But Sierra Space has actually positioned themselves as a contractor making tons of different things. Not just vehicles. You know, obviously they're making thermal control systems and solar panel drive actuators. You know, they make shuttles, but they also make, you know, the shooting star, like a station module. They're also working on making space station modules too, inflatable space station modules. So they're kind of positioning themselves as a contractor for a lot of different things, which is actually super cool. Yeah, see, watch. You can watch the hab module go boom. Here, see, watch. It's gonna pop. Ready? Look close. It's very subtle. Oh, wait, no, it's not. Yeah, it's broken. Pretty cool. Can't use the promo news or promo music. Yeah, they're testing those modules for like debris hits and overpressurization for long periods of time. Yeah, Sierra's doing all kinds of cool stuff. I actually didn't know that they made stuff for Europa Clipper until just now, but I did know that they were a spaceflight supplier, which is kind of cool, guys. You're starting. This speaks to a little bit of a bigger thing, and I won't dwell too much on it, but you know this. You know, I've talked in the past about how the incessant need to commercialize everything from NASA's point of view is not necessarily ideal. However, I will say that us starting to build out the U.S. commercial market, starting to build out an industrial base for parts is pretty cool. You're starting to see the beginnings of that. I can think of 2 suppliers now that are basically positioning themselves as not necessarily a launch provider, but building all the stuff that you need to make a rocket. So like valve suppliers, solar panel suppliers. Actually 3, Sierra, Rocket Lab, and Firefly. Engine suppliers, right? So, I want to build a rocket. I need a rocket that's going to use, 1 Raptor in the first stage and like 3 Reavers in the upper stage, or a Miranda engine in the upper stage. Not a Raptor, but you get the idea. The point is that you're starting to see a commercial industrial base for exploring space get built, and that's one of the building blocks for like maybe someday having rockets be like airplanes. A lot of airplanes use what's called an off-the-shelf component. For instance, like Firefly with their Reaver engines and their Miranda engines are they're already positioning their propulsion systems to be on multiple vehicles. One of them is not even theirs, which is actually super cool. They're working on Firefly Alpha, but the Miranda engines are going to be, and they're working on MLV, but Miranda engines are going to be powering Antares as well, which is actually super cool. Like, just off the shelf, I want that engine, that first stage engine from that company with that second stage engine from that company will make a new vehicle. Like, you're starting to see that kind of stuff happen, which is actually, that's pretty good, man. That's a pretty good thing, Going back to tying it all back to the thing, like NASA's incessant need to commercialize everything, right? NASA should be working on newer propulsion, right? But also, I think NASA could learn, from this newly utilized industrial base, maybe taking some parts off the shelf and making their own stuff too. Yeah, like KSP in real life. Exactly. Yeah, exactly, Pop. You're starting to, it's starting to get to be like the car industry. We're starting to see the beginnings of that, right? Where, you could just buy the engine and put it in whatever you want, which is pretty cool. Who knows? Maybe someday we'll see a space shuttle with like 3 BE-4s in the back instead of RS-25s or something. And a stainless steel, like LNG external tank. We're not yet at the point of rocket hot rodding, but we're almost at the point of rocket hot rodding, which is pretty cool. That's pretty neat. Well, that's pretty neat. LS swap the shuttle. No, not LS, RS. RS. See? No, not an LS swap. RS swap. See? Read the sign. Don't make me tap the sign. I mean, people already build rockets in their garage. Look at Joe Barnard, whose high stakes launch was quite good, might I add. Yeah, Trey, maybe. I'll link you to a very interesting video of this Italian who entered the Thales Alenia Space Factory if you want to watch it off stream. Yeah, I probably will, but Dojo, let me see. Qui costruiscono le incredibili stazioni spaziali. Sì. Sweet, that's awesome, man. Yeah, I'll check it out. I love your Italian. Grazie. Grazie, signori. Please no spoilers about high stakes for us mere mortals without access to Joe's Patreon. Oh, I don't have access to the patrons. Yeah, you'll see. You'll see. I don't have access to that. I saw his X post. It looked good from what I saw, but I don't know. Yeah, no spoilers. I got you. I got you. All right. Cool. All right, next bit of news. So we have some Blorgen news from over the weekend. You guys might appreciate it. Little bit of, I'll just read it to you. This is a little weird. Didn't expect this, but here, check this out. Check this out. This is coming from Dave Limp. Dave Limp, 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 Dave Limp.
My name is Jeff.
Jeff. All right. Sorry. So Dave Limp. While we're waiting for regulatory approvals for Hot Fire and launch, here's a photo and a bonus video of our chilling Glen Stage 1. That's the new Glen first stage. This marks the first time we're tanking our first stage with liquefied natural gas and liquid oxygen. The first stage LOX tank is nearly 30,000 cubic feet, and the LNG tank is almost 25,000 cubic feet. Oh, God. Oh, God. Oh, I love it. I love it. There ain't no millimeters here. Milliliters, millimeters, that all sounds the same to me. The equivalent to about 24 and 20 tanker trucks, respectively. GS1 tanking during the NG1 launch will only take about 30 minutes. Due to the engine consumption during boost, it drains the first stage in about 3.5 minutes. The heck is a kilometer? So check this out. Oh, hey. Hey, buddy. Hey, buddy. But that's really cool. But oh, dear. Common Glen W. Oh, dear. Oh, dear. That's not great. Do you know that it does take... Do you know that it does take to get regulatory approval, how the regulation... Do I know what it takes? Obviously, it takes a lot. I mean... I don't know, Spligata. I have no idea, dude. Clearly, look, man, I've always said, like, you know, this is going back to something that SpaceX was saying. SpaceX was saying that the regulatory approval from the FAA is too slow for their flight rate. I've always said that, so the framework for regulatory approval for launches of commercial vehicles, right, is on the FAA, right? And it's on an FAA regulatory framework called Regulatory Framework 450. So Framework 450, or just 450 for short. All right. 450 is supposed to be a streamlined process to get stuff done quicker. I firmly believe that the process is actually pretty quick right now. I'm pretty dang sure that SpaceX looked at the writing on the wall. What does that mean? So if you cast your mind back to Flight 5 and Flight 6, Elon made a big thing on X, and SpaceX made a big thing on X about how the FAA is going too slow, how the paperwork is too big, blah, 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 it takes too long, etc., etc. And then, you know, there was that whole big thing, and then all of a sudden, it was good to go. Flight 5 and Flight 6 had a blanket license, and we saw both of them in about a month, maybe 5 weeks apart from each other. I firmly believe that what they're really talking about, and this is, maybe I'm reading into it too much. I don't know. Maybe I'm reading into it too much. I firmly believe what they're talking about isn't necessarily that it goes slow right now. If it kind of goes at a decent, like at a brisk pace right now, it's going to be a cluster in the future, because SpaceX isn't going to be the only people asking for regulatory approval all the time. See what I'm talking about? I firmly believe that they're basically saying, look, it's kind of slow right now, but it's going to be super slow in the future, and we're going to be screwed by that. I mean, Blue plans on flying New Glenn more than 12 times a year. I don't know the exact rate. I don't think anybody knows necessarily, but New Glenn is designed to be flipped around real quick. So I think SpaceX was talking about in the future that this regulatory framework is inadequate. If it's a brisk pace with one provider trying to launch all the time, it's going to be dead slow with two providers trying to launch a lot, you know? To the extent I'm curious about the delay, New Glenn has been in development for more than 8 years. Pad built or finished for 3 years, and it's in the Space Force station that is not Boca, but it's not a Space Force mission, so the FAA would have jurisdiction because it's a straight commercial launch, unless the Space Force wanted to shoulder the risk of public safety for the flight, right? So time for Blue Pans to assault FAA DMs. Oh wait, they don't have any. Damn. Would it be easier to make every launch site a permanent no-fly zone? It works for airports, though, Force. Do you want me to send a bill that takes the FAA? No. I don't want to talk about that. I don't. Okay. Anyway, very interesting. So, yeah, New Glenn is looking to do a hot fire and launch by the end of the year, but we'll see what happens. They're also working on Blue Ring. Check this out. Blue Ring Pathfinder payload ready for launch. Blue Origin's New Glenn on track for this year. Blue Origin's payload for New Glenn's first mission, NG-1, is ready for launch. NG-1 will carry the company's Blue Ring Pathfinder and mark the rocket's first national security space launch certification flight. The encapsulated payload will be integrated onto the launch vehicle following the hot fire. New Glenn will lift off from Blue Origin's Launch Complex 36 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. Pathfinder was developed by Blue Origin's In-Space Systems business unit. It will test Blue Ring's core flight ground systems and operational capabilities. NG-1 will carry the Blue Ring Pathfinder as part of the Defense Innovation Unit's DIU Orbital Logistics Prototype effort. DIU funding is helping to enable future Department of Defense missions. The demonstrator includes a communications array, power systems, and a flight computer affixed to a secondary payload adapter ring. The Pathfinder will validate Blue Ring's communication capabilities from the ground. The mission will also test its in-space telemetry, tracking, and common hardware, and ground-based radiometric tracking that will be used in future Blue Ring's production space vehicles. The Pathfinder will remain on board New Glenn's second stage for the duration of the expected 6-hour mission. We're excited to demonstrate Blue Ring's advanced in-space operations on New Glenn's inaugural mission, said Paul Eberts, SVP of Blue Origin's In-Space Systems. Blue Ring plays a critical role in building a road to space, and this mission is a part of an important first step for Blue Ring in enabling dynamic and responsive operations that will greatly benefit our nation. There you go. About Blue Ring. Blue Ring addresses two of the most difficult challenges in spaceflight today: growing space infrastructure and the need for increased mobility in space. The spacecraft's ability to maneuver to multiple orbits and locations, deploy and host payloads, and perform onboard computing and communications will enable groundbreaking missions for a variety of customers. The multi-mission space mobility platform can host 3,000 kilograms of payloads across 13 ports to destinations in geo, cislunar, and interplanetary space. Blue Ring's ports can accommodate ESPA and ESPA Grande class satellites up to a 2.5 metric ton payload on top of its deck. So Blue Ring is basically a satellite tug. It's a mobile satellite tug that Blue is developing for launching a lot of different satellites all at once. That's actually a pretty smart idea. It's a propulsive host vehicle. So it's like it's somewhat analogous in function to like a Fregat upper stage. which is actually kind of cool. Pretty neat. That's pretty neat. How neat is that? Blue used metric for once. Go away. If you open the image at the top of the web page, we get humans for scale. Yeah, Newglen's fairings are not small. That's quite a lot of space. 7-meter fairing, dudes. That's no joke. This is actually, Blue Ring seems somewhat analogous in function to the Curie upper stage that Rocket Lab uses. Where do they keep the banana? They gave it to me. See, it's right here. Wait, no, it's the wrong way. Hand banana, no! Banana. Banana. And that looks a little post-ripe. No, it's just a chromanana. Don't worry about it. Cool. This is a PAF processing stool for payload encapsulation and fairing integration. That's what this piece is for. Super neat. That's pretty neat. How big is that banana? Can you put it next to something for scale? No, unfortunately, I can't. Yep, there's your fairing vents right there. Cool, cool. Speaking of banana, have you seen this? What could we be up to? Hashtag SpaceX. Oh yeah, also if you guys haven't seen the Flight 6 Starship patch, that's... They responded to the previous post saying it was their banana that flew. All right. All right. That's a banana. Okay. Do you think Starship would be better off deploying a smaller lunar lander for crew and cargo rather than using HLS after Artemis? HLS can barely make it back to low lunar. I think SLS should have its own lander, Archie, but that's like, yeah, people don't want to, you guys don't want to hear me talk about that stuff, or do you? I don't know. I think NASA should have their own hypergolic lander, at least in the interim period. Not necessarily because I don't believe in Starship, but, you know, I do believe in redundancy. The space program itself tells me not to put all your eggs in one basket. So in that regard, NASA is fielding like two landers. They have SLD, and they have, so like Blue's lander, and they also have Starship. But the thing about that is, dude, is like, both of those landers rely on fully cryogenic propellant. Nobody is fielding a hypergolic lander. And in the interim time, those first moon missions, I really think we could benefit from a hypergolic system. Like the LEM. You basically build the LEM again. That's it. Just build another LEM. Like that's the real truth. Build another one. You telling me we can't build another one? We could manufacture a much better LEM nowadays. I think NASA needs to do that. Because the only thing, you know, and I'm not like, use that for a couple of landings here and there. And use it basically when you only need to send people down to the surface. And and kind of go from there. I mean, like, it might be a little too late to do this anyway, because the landers are already well on the way, but I think it would be good for NASA just to get people down to the moon. So, like, they can use an HLS and get an HLS down there and stuff. And I'm saying, like, get an HLS down there and leave it there, and then land like a small 2-person lander next to it. I mean, that's supposedly what we're going to do with Blue, and that's all fine and dandy. But that architecture really thrives when you already have a presence down on the moon. Does that make sense? The alpaca thing? No. No. Just make another limb. Did you see the plan that Mike Griffin proposed yesterday? Ooh. Mike? My guy. That guy's the man. What did he say here? Former NASA Administrator Mike Griffin recently released an update version on his dual-launch Artemis plan to get humans to the moon. It relies on SLS Block 2 launches and a lander that doesn't exist. This is kind of what I'm talking about. Yeah, that's not the worst idea. Landers that don't exist are a dime a dozen. Yeah, this is kind of what I'm getting at. This is LOR, Lunar Orbit Rendezvous Architecture to an extreme. Apollo used a variant of LOR. So, like, when we're talking about ways to get to the moon from the surface of the moon, or surface of the Earth to the surface of the moon and back, there are a couple of different frameworks for it. There's EOR, right? Called Earth Orbit Rendezvous. If you've ever played Kerbal, you've probably used EOR at some point in career mode. Basically, where you launch the lander, you launch your transfer stage, and then you launch your people, and you couple it together in low Earth orbit, and then send it, or low Kerbin orbit, and then send it to the moon. That's EOR. Basically, you rendezvous everything on Earth. Right? LOR, Lunar Orbit Rendezvous, is what the Saturn V used. But the Saturn V had a variation on Lunar Orbit Rendezvous. Lunar Orbit Rendezvous, like baseline, is basically launch your lander, get it out to the moon, launch your people, get them out to the moon, dock around the moon, people get into lander, lander goes down to the surface, lander comes back up, lander transfers people back to capsule, capsule goes back. That's basically what Mike Griffin is proposing here. It's Lunar Orbit Rendezvous. So the Apollo program did the same thing, only they launched everything all at once, the reason why they chose that architecture is because that was the most expedient way of getting it done. Remember, they were under the gun. You can go to Borgar's tweet for the article. Okay. Oh, dude. Yeah, it has Apollo flight operations in there. The history. All right, let's see what their thesis statement is. Let's see if it's that far out from mine. Can you link this, please? Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Hard for me to process that this is the same man that helped us form SpaceX 23 years ago. Okay, let's read. Seems like people aren't fans. I'm sorry, like, I guess I'm in the minority opinion here that NASA should have their own redundant systems. It seems like everyone wants them to just not do that stuff. I don't know. Am I out of touch? Surely. No. Everybody else is wrong. All right, anyway. The history and present approach to the U.S. human lunar landing missions are discussed, with attention to the importance of maintaining leadership in space from the perspective of U.S. global stature and influence. The NASA Artemis lunar mission architecture and plans are outlined in programmatic and that sentence is giving me a stronk. The NASA Artemis lunar mission architecture and plans are outlined in programmatic and technical issues contributing to the complexity and fragility of the present mission design are discussed. Hey, you guys want a good writer? Find a languager, okay? An alternative dual launch architecture is offered, and a point design within that architecture is assessed. The proposed design assumes a crew lander based on existing technology, incorporates flight-proven systems for other elements, and is shown to meet NASA's basic Artemis requirement for a crew to the lunar South Pole region for a week, with significantly reduced complexity and crew mission risk. Don strunk the bondulans, the beams non stronking of bondulans, call the beams non. What? NASA should be doing the hard things. Leave the backup plan to Blue and SpaceX. Blue Origin and SpaceX. I agree with you, Wisp. Yeah, anyway. Let's see. Let's read. So the United States currently faces many significant threats and challenges. Here comes China. China. Get your bingo cards out. Is China going to get mentioned? SpaceX, Blue Origin going to get mentioned? Artemis program? We already got Artemis. Get your bingo cards out. The United States currently faces many significant threats and challenges, some of which feel eerily familiar with those who lived through the Cold War, a time when daunting adversarial affected almost every aspect of our country's policies and actions. The impact of that time on the psyche of our country cannot be underestimated. It has profoundly shaped the lens through which we view the world today, particularly with respect to China and its global ambitions. Bingo! Never gonna stop saying it like that. It's a brainworm, man. I'm not doing it on purpose. I'm kind of doing it on purpose, but also China. Sorry, it's funny to me, okay? All right. Perhaps one of the most striking examples of this is in our civil space program, where a Cold War-style competition in space was recently acknowledged by NASA Administrator, Senator, Representative, Politician, Payload, Bill Nelson. Among other things, he explains why it's important that the United States accomplish a return to the moon before China can do so. I don't want them to get there and say, this is ours, you stay out. And I also want to make sure that we have lunar pudding. That's what he said. See the quote? Interestingly, China's former General Director of Lunar Exploration Missions, Yi Peichen, stated the following at around the same time. The cosmos is an ocean. The moon is the Diaoyu Islands. Mars is Huangyan Island, Scarborough Shoal. If we can go, but don't go, future generations would condemn us. Okay, there's some facts to that. Once others are there, once others have occupied, no matter how much you wanted to go, you couldn't. Oh, no. Yeah, that's right, Creation, that's right. Clearly, both countries understand the importance of being first. History teaches us that the rules, standards, and values of a new frontier are established by those who show up, not by those who stay at home. The point was eloquently articulated by President John F. Kennedy in his September 1962 speech at Rice University. The exploration of space will go ahead, whether we join in or not, and it is one of the greatest adventures of all time. And no nation which expects to be the leader of other nations can expect to stay behind in this race for space. This generation does not intend to founder in the backwash of the coming age of space. We mean to be a part of it. We mean to lead it. For the eyes of the world, now look into space, to the moon, and to the planets beyond. And we have vowed that we shall not see it governed by a hostile flag of conquest, but by a banner of freedom and peace. Yet the vows of this nation can only be fulfilled if we in this nation are first. And therefore, we intend to be first. It's not bad, right? No, not bad. Not bad. I believe this nation should commit itself, before this decade is out, of sending a man to the surface of the moon and return him safely to the earth. I think you were trying for Kennedy. All right, that's good enough. Hey, man, some of that I even got the inflection right. Be quiet, all right? Gonna take me down a peg or two. That was dope. Hey, that was pretty good for Rambo. He shot my hair. My hair. All right, anyway. With that in mind and recognized that we are again in competition with a self-declared adversarial power, it is important to examine our nation's plan for achieving and maintaining preeminence in human space exploration and development. Recognizing that the last human lunar landing in the Apollo program occurred more than half a century ago, a brief recap of the achievements of that era might be helpful to set context for the discussion to follow. I never understand why you do the Goodwill Hunting accent. What? What do you mean? That's President Kennedy. Why does Rice play Texas? We chose to go to the moon. He's from the same area where Goodwill Hunting took place. Just, God damn it. That's a really, really good speech for what it's worth. If you're a space fan and you want to see a baller speech about space exploration, President Kennedy's 1962 address at Rice University is probably the best. That put into words why NASA really does what they do. It's really awesome. It'll make you feel like $1 million. Now do Martin Sheen and name the reference. He played Kennedy once. Okay. How it was done before. Following President Kennedy's May 61 speech calling for the nation to commit itself to achieving the goal before this decade is out of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to the earth. That's what I referenced already before. So this speech, the other speech is 1962. That's 1962 at Rice University. That's 61. That was before that. NASA conceived and led the Apollo program, culminating in 6 landings of 7 attempts on Apollo 11 through 17 from 1969 to 1972. This was accomplished at a cost of $28.5 billion in 1973 dollars, $257 billion in 2020 dollars. Ow. That's a lot. That's a lot of dollars. In expenditures from 1960 to 1973. Of that total, $4 billion 1973 dollars was expended for flight operations for Apollo 7 through 17 at a cost of $355 to $447 million per mission. Figure 1 depicts the Apollo mission profile. Yep, this is a variation of LOR, where you launch everything in one shot. You launch transfer stage, lander, and CSM on a translunar injection burn. That's why orbital restart was such a big deal for the Apollo program. The S-4B did the insertion burn in low Earth orbit, and also did the transfer burn on translunar injection. Eagle Houston, you are a go for TLI, over. Yeah, no? All right. Whatever. It's not Eagle. It was the CSM, but you get the idea. So from there, the command service module did a LOI, lunar orbit insertion, to get the Apollo CSM and the LEM into a low lunar orbit. Crew transferred into the lander, culminating in a landing vehicle, single stage down, single stage up. So they used the Apollo lunar excursion module descent module, which is this lower piece right here, to get all the way down, and then use the ascent module to get all the way back up, effectively using the descent module basically as a launch pad. The ascent module comes right back up, rendezvous with the CSM, ascent module is disposed of, command service module comes back, jettisons its service module on its trans-earth injection return burn, and skips off the atmosphere, doesn't have its heat shield char, as we know, and actually lands. Yeah, this is a LOR rendezvous. This was the most expedient way of doing this. Obviously, it was not the most cost-effective way, but, you know, I'll get more into that. So you're building this in Kerbal, right? That? Oh. Averaged out over the life of the program, that's about 25 to 30 billion in 2020 dollars per launch. Yeah, exactly, Tessa. That's, and you know, it's funny because people are freaking out at SLS costing like $1 billion or even $2 billion. Okay. Remember when I said on the Flame Trench, I don't think SLS is too expensive. That's why. Because, yeah, it's not a bad price considering you needed all the facilities to build and test a super heavy launch vehicle and launch one. It's not bad. It's really not a bad price tag. And if we had just kept building Saturn V's, the price could have gone down. You could have gotten the price down to, I don't know, what would you say? I would say if we were launching Saturn V's like 12 times a year for the next like 20 years after the start of the Apollo program, probably could have gotten priced down to like maybe 300-400 million a launch. Probably. Yeah. That's how much R&D we put into the Apollo program. R&D is included in your price per launch. Right? So it's actually not bad. I'd say maybe 500 million, which isn't bad. 500 million for a lunar mission is great. If you're doing it this way. After Apollo. After the Apollo program was canceled in a series of decisions by the Nixon administration in 1969 to 70, with residual hardware used for Skylab missions in 73 and 74, the Apollo-Soyuz mission in 1975 for museum displays at Johnson, Kennedy, and Marshall were scrapped. There was no strong or consistent support at the national level for human lunar return following Apollo's termination. Presidents George H.W. Bush, George Bush Sr., and George Bush Jr. each proposed that NASA should undertake to return to the moon. In both cases, their successors canceled those efforts without significant congressional objection. SLS is a pretty big congressional objection, but, you know, splitting hairs. Splitting hairs! There was also that whole space shuttle thing that we did for like 40 years. Just putting it out there. Historians, policymakers, NASA leaders, and engineers have debated this lack of sustained interest in human lunar exploration and development for 2 generations, with many reasons having been advanced, all of them likely carrying some element of truth. Probably the most common refrain expressed has been that Apollo was not sustainable, meaning that it was not affordable. That Apollo was not sustained is an observed. That other stuff, dude, yeah, that probably would have ended up being way cheaper than the space shuttle. Like, way cheaper than the space shuttle. Even expended. Even with expendable vehicles, launching on maybe 4 to 5 flights a year on a Saturn V, I wouldn't ramp up to a Saturn V a day. Unless you were doing, like, double lunar missions. So, like, you know, one Saturn V sends the HAB module and the other one sends people. I'd probably say, like, maybe max Saturn V, like, 12 times a year, maybe. Maybe? Like, that's a lot. That's a lot of Saturn V's. But then again, that's what it was designed to do. I mean, they built 4 high bays in the VAB. They built 2 launch pads, 3 mobile launchers, 2 crawler transports to basically be in constant go for the lunar program. Apollo was just phase 1 of a much bigger architecture that was envisioned by von Braun and his systems engineers. You could have built a huge station out of Skylab modules. Yeah, exactly, RJ. You could have built the ISS in like 4 or 5 launches easily. And with the CSM being able to and a Saturn 1B being able to basically carry an airlock from the Apollo-Soyuz test project in the back, dude, You could do with Apollo architecture. This is what I've always said, man. Apollo is, people saying Apollo isn't sustainable is the hardest copium I've ever heard. Apollo can service satellites. Apollo can build space stations. Apollo can build transfer vehicles. Apollo can get to the moon, and Apollo probably could use said transfer vehicles. Not probably. It could use said transfer vehicles to do Venus and Mars flybys, paving the way for going to those respective planets. Probably not Venus. You probably don't want to land there, but you get the idea. You could do satellite servicing with Apollo, with the Saturn 1B. The vehicle stage adapter carried the Apollo-Soyuz test project adapter. What do you think that is? That's basically an airlock for the most part. I would say if it can carry that, you could probably have it carry an airlock. Shouldn't be too bad. Wasn't Saturn V going to be reusable? They were planning on figuring out ways to reuse Saturn V, at least bits and pieces, thousands. Not like Starship, bring it back down and land, but eventually, sure. Yeah, see, I agree with that. I very much agree with that. The other thing that I proved for that I kind of like makes sense for sustainability, you can do everything that the Artemis program is trying to accomplish with this. With what you see right there, you can do everything with it. This can build a gateway. This can get you to the surface of the moon. This could get you to the surface of the moon sustainably, not necessarily with a reusable lander, but that's what I mean about building a lander that works first. You got to kind of go with what you know with spaceflight, and if you don't, you're reinventing the wheel. By 1971 to 72, with the successful initiation missions of Apollo 11 and 12 accomplished, the immensely valuable experience of Apollo 13 rescue behind them, with an increased value of operational experience, hardware maturity, and overall system capability, NASA executed 2 lunar landing missions per year at a cost of less than $900 million a year in 1973 dollars, about $7.4 billion in 2020 dollars. At NASA's post-Apollo budgetary low point of about $3 billion in 1974, sustaining this 2-mission per year tempo would have consumed only about a third of the agency's budget in an era where over 50% of the budget was allocated to human spaceflight. Apollo was not fiscally unsustainable. It was simply not sustained in favor of other priorities. Yes, exactly. That's exactly what I'm saying. See, this is why I like Mike Griffin, because that's right. That is correct. Objectively, that's correct. The Saturn V with SRBs would have been cool. There were trade studies done, RJ, to put Titan's SRBs on Saturn V. Yeah. Launch the Saturn V and then air start the SRBs after you've left the pad. Yeah, they were cooking, man. They had some nutso freaking ideas. Yeah, 4 Titan SRBs on the side of the S1C to give you that extra punch. That would have easily put you at over like 130, 140 metric tons to low Earth orbit. That's pretty good, man. Yeah, Saturn heavy. Dude, they were thinking about it. It never got off the ground, figuratively and actually, but it was a trade study that they did. Dude, they were cooking, man. They had all kinds of cool ideas. Air start. Yeah, so Bright, get it off the pad, right? And then fire the SRBs after you've left the pad. That would have been a little bit difficult to do. You probably would have needed to modify the ML a little bit to get that to work. But yeah, you'd air start the SRBs. That was at least I could be remembering that wrong. I'm pretty sure that's what they wanted to do. There's enough TWR. That's kind of what's sticking out in my head. And that's probably why it never got off the ground as a trade study. If I had to guess, I don't know for sure. Pray for synchronous SRB ignition. Yeah, right? Why not? We submit that a major reason, sometimes cited by others, is that with the race to the moon having been won, there was no clear reason to continue. The lunar landings were risky, and there were always competing claims on limited budgets. But winning a race is a tactical, not strategic goal. 2.5 millennia ago, Sun Tzu observed that strategy without tactics is the slowest route to victory. Tactics without strategy is the noise before defeat. Apollo was brilliantly executed from a tactical perspective, but in the absence of a long-term strategy for the exploration and development of the space domain, something never prioritized by policymakers in the Apollo era after Kennedy, why continue? We offer that the proper strategic goal for our nation and its partners is to lead the world into a new human domain. The imperative to expand the human range is as old as the human race. It is a goal to be pursued whether we have an adversary or not. Oh my gosh, that's what I've been saying. Oh, I feel so freaking vindicated right now. Oh, bask in my vindication. I'm in a glass case of vindication. Anyway. Also, Sun Tzu said, never piss into the wind. That is tactics without strategy. Yeah, that's a real quote. It is not a race and should not be framed as such. There is no finish line. While having a formidable adversary during the Apollo era against which we felt the existential need to win the race pushed us to a remarkable accomplishment, that motivation in itself should not have defined our national strategy, and we must not allow ourselves to fall into that trap again. Dude, okay, I'm not trying to toot my own damn horn. This is exactly what I said after the Artemis 1 presser the other day. I said that exactly. I said it was cringe. Saying, oh, we got to raise China. No, that's cringe. That's not going to get us very far. Okay. All right. All right. I'm not trying to be like, oh, look, EJ was right. It just makes me feel a little bit better that I actually, like, that there are people out there that know a lot more about space than me that are actually coming to the same conclusion as me. That makes me feel good about myself and gives me a slight boost to my ego. Don't worry. Chat will take it down a peg or two when I inevitably screw something up in a game or wherever. Don't worry about it. But also, that really does feel good, man. Sorry, what's the doc that I'm reading? This is an op-ed here from Mike Griffin and Lisa Porter. It's a system architecture for human lunar return. Can we send this document to Jared? He needs to do this, just with some more stuff to private industry. Yep. Is this recent? This document came out today. Yeah, this document came out today. This is super recent. No worries, I'll pop that ego later. Yeah, no, thank you, as you should. Do you remember the Andy Griffith show? It was around when my grandfather was young. I'm old, Graham, but I'm not that old, man. Jeez. We believe that former presidential science advisor John Marburger came the closest to articulating the true essence of the imperative of human space exploration in a 2006 speech, observing that the question about the vision for space exploration boils down to whether we want to incorporate the solar system in our economic sphere or not. Okay. Yes. I would like to add, everybody, that VSE and the legislature that was written because of the vision for space exploration led to SpaceX. That was part of it. Just want to point that out, just in case they'll probably talk about it. But also, that's right. We think that it is exactly right. In the long run, human exploration, the expansion of our range of action, has always paid dividends. Usually not to the individual pioneers, for whom such ventures tend to be quite hazardous, but to the generations that follow. Hey, Bly, 21-month resub, returning to the moon, just like I returned to your mom last night. Got him. See what I mean about taking a pegger down too? Bly, if my mother's watching this, you're going to feel real bad about yourself. You're going to feel real bad, dude. She does watch the stream from time to time. Just saying. I'm just putting it out there, man. Like, that's not a lady you want mad at you. Let me just put it to you like that. You don't want an Italian mom getting mad at you. That is ill-advised. Yeah? Yeah, that's not a good idea. Yeah, I mean, you should probably run. No more spaghetti. How dare you? All right. Okay, back to the space stuff. If that were not true, if the motivation to see over the next hill did not pay off in the long run, it never would have been weeded from the gene pool long ago. Yeah, that's right. All systems, 86-month resub. For some reason, I can't hear it, but I do appreciate it, man. But we must acknowledge that space exploration is not for the faint heart, nor from Oscar Wilde's famous definition of a cynic is it for the people who know the price of everything and the value of nothing. Oh. Oscar Wilde, good reference. All right. Patriotism is a virtue of the vicious, according to Oscar Wilde. Thank you for proving my point. Is this just someone at NASA ranting? Well, Pop, this is a paper that's written by Mike Griffin. Mike Griffin was a NASA administrator. He was the NASA administrator before Charlie Bolden. Yeah. As NASA administrator, he championed VSE, he championed commercial crew, commercial orbital he championed a small. Mike Griffin is the guy that's responsible for Constellation. He's a guy that I look up to. I've read a lot of his papers, and a lot of my ideas about space really come from him. To be 100% real with you, that and Homer Hickam and a couple of other names you might know. I think Mike Griffin's ideas about how space goes is where I get the NASA SpaceX sustainability rant that you've heard a bajillion freaking times from me. That's really where I formed that thesis from papers written by him. So this is a new one. This is a new paper from Mike Griffin, and it's proving all of my damn points. Mike Griffin, once again, part of his Constellation and part of the vision for space exploration is incorporating a spaceflight economy into your space program to help prop it up. Part of the Constellation program had an office called Commercial Crew Transportation Capabilities Program, or CCT CAP. CCT CAP led to the Dragon capsule, led to Falcon 9, it led to Commercial Crew, it led to Starliner. Never mind that part. It led to SpaceX. That's the real important thing. And Cygnus, too, for what it's worth. And inadvertently Dream Chaser. We'll see if that's a good thing to mention or a bad thing to mention in another year or so. Okay. So that's where that comes from. It's actually, dude, pretty good. Pretty good ideas about spaceflight, about having a commercial space sector basically prop up your space program. But NASA needs to be at the front. They need to be at the front lines of exploration. I'm sure he'll talk about this in a second. And we must recognize that the decisions we make today will determine whether we lead in the great adventure of space, as Kennedy described it, or whether we founder in the backwash of other pioneers whose values do not reflect our own. Oh, this is going to get spicy. This is going to get real spicy. Do you guys want the spice? Maybe I should read this off stream. This is going to get a little bit spicy, I think. Peccadillo, 38-month resub. Thank you very much. This is going to get a little habanero-y. I promise I won't lose my cool, all right? I'm trying not to do that. Okay, let's go. Artemis overview. We want ghost pepper levels of spice? Okay. All right. You skipped a sub. No, I did that on purpose. Tier 3, 103. Thank you. No, Tessa, for whatever reason, the alerts aren't playing through the headset. I'm not 100% sure why. But, yeah, I'm not getting audio, so I'm just kind of checking back and forth. Oh, politics. No, this talks more about architecture, Kirok, to be 100% real. This is more architectural than anything, from what I've read. Is this what you were talking about? Let me see, Mutter. Yeah, that's the guy. Yeah, that's the guy. Yeah, Saturn V with Titan SRBs attached to the back. Yeah, that's a spicy meatball. It's a spicy meatball. What was that thing's payload capacity projected? 223,500 kilograms. Okay. Yeah, all right. 220 tons to Leo with a 10-meter fairing. Oh, that's an idea I can get behind, man. All right. Artemis overview. Beginning in 2017, successive administrations under Presidents Trump and Biden have supported a renewed human lunar exploration initiative, the Artemis program. The core Artemis mission requirements is to place a crew of 4 on the lunar surface for about a week, with longer stays leading to the establishment of a lunar base to follow. Yeah, we have. I'll make sure the cooling loops are active. What was the payload? All of it. Yep. Artemis 1, conducted in November and December of 2022, was a successful, uncrewed circumlunar swingby, a development flight test for the Space Launch System and the Orion crew vehicle. Post-flight inspection has surfaced concerns about the integrity of Orion's heat shield. We learned about this in that press conference last Tuesday. Or I think it was Tuesday. Was it Tuesday? It was a week ago, give or take. Basically, Artemis's heat shield started delaminating. Now it started coming apart, basically charring. Now heat shields do burn. They do. That's what they're supposed to do. You don't want large chunks of the heat shield to be removed as you're ablating. That's bad. That's not great. It's called Space Launch System, Alto. No, SLS is derived from Space Transportation System, which is the shuttle. How will Starship keep its propellants cool for long durations missions without adding significant thermal protection? Well, Dan, the Starship has the header tanks. The header tanks are basically a vacuum sealed thermos. That's how SpaceX is going to try and mitigate that problem. But who knows? What's STS derived from? Yes. These will be addressed prior to Artemis 2. Again, a circumlunar swingby mission, but with a crew of 4. Mission architectures for Artemis 3 and beyond invoke a critical new feature, the use of a near rectilinear halo orbit as a staging orbit for landing missions. Halo orbits are solutions to the circular restricted three-body problem, CR3BP of orbital mechanics, which describes the motion of a small body moving under the influence of 2 larger bodies circling their common center of mass, e.g. the Orion spacecraft in the Earth-Moon system. NASA has chosen approximately a 3,000 by 70,000 9:2 ratio halo orbit for Artemis. So named because a spacecraft in that orbit makes 9 orbital revolutions every 2 hours. I said aspect ratio because media. Anyway, 9 orbital revolutions every two months, not hours. Interesting. Artemis 3 is scheduled to conduct the first crewed landing mission in the program. Figure 2 depicts the orbital architecture and shows how the near rectilinear halo orbit staging area is used in the flight operations sequence. 2 crew members will be making the landing, with 2 remaining in the Orion module in rectilinear halo orbit. Nice, Will. That's cool. Yeah, 2 lunar months, not hours. Sorry, yeah, my brain did, yeah, head's a pet. It's Monday. Give me a break. Coffee? Oh, crap. All right. Well, bear with me. All right. Artemis 3 flight plan. Landing missions after Artemis 3 will stage at the Gateway, shown in Figure 3, a small space station consisting of a habitation module and power and propulsion element. Gateway is to be deployed to rectilinear halo orbit on the uncrewed Artemis 4 mission. The Artemis 5 mission, and those to follow, will use Gateway as a transfer node and supporting element for the lander, which is pre-deployed to rectilinear halo orbit prior to crew launch, and Orion, which will remain docked at the Gateway while the crew descends to the lunar surface in the human landing system. NASA is using a commercial service acquisition model for many elements of the Artemis program, wherein the agency rents or purchases services rather than taking the delivery of hardware built by prime contractors. In the current plan, NASA is responsible for definition of mission architecture, crew delivery to rectilinear halo orbit for rendezvous with the pre-deployed HLS or, when available, gateway, crew return from rectilinear halo orbit to Earth's surface. The HLS contractors are responsible for design and production of their human landing system elements, delivery of uncrewed human landing system to rectilinear halo orbit, and, when available, rendezvous with gateway. Uncrewed human landing system loiter in rectilinear halo orbit for up to 60 to 90 days, while awaiting crew arrival. Basically, NASA's going to send the people, the contractors have to send the lander, and they have to make sure that the lander is ready to go when the people get there. And then they're also responsible for bringing people down to the surface. SpaceX was selected in 2021 for the Artemis 3 mission and received a second award in 2022 for a later landing mission. A team led by Blue Origin was selected in 2023 to execute the Artemis 5 mission. Given the constraint of staging operations through rectilinear halo orbit, the planned sequence of flight operations for the two contractors is somewhat similar. A fuel depot transfer vehicle is placed in low Earth orbit and subsequently filled by multiple flights of either the Starship or New Glenn, requiring a number of tanker flights that has not been definitively announced in either case, but is variously estimated to be between 10 and 20 for SpaceX. For SpaceX, the uncrewed lander is launched, fueled in low Earth orbit, and then deployed to rectilinear halo orbit. For Blue Origin, a tanker is filled in low Earth orbit and then sent to rectilinear halo orbit where it refuels the separately deployed lander. I would prefer you to shut up, Tessa, to be honest with you. All right. Following the SLS Orion crew launch and rendezvous with HLS and rectilinear halo, the crew leaves rectilinear halo in a half-day transfer to a polar lunar low lunar orbit. Polar low lunar orbit, or just LLO for short. A parking orbit is set up to descend and land near the lunar south pole. The rectilinear halo orbit selected by NASA and shown in Figure 2 has a period of approximately 6.5 days, permitting optimal access to and return from the lunar surface on that schedule. The HLS departs the surface for low lunar and the subsequent half-day transfer to rectilinear halo orbit and rendezvous with Orion, or, beginning with Artemis 5, Gateway Orion assembly, 6.5 days after leaving rectilinear halo orbit. Figure 4 shows the Artemis 3 mission design, while Figure 5 recasted in the same format as employed elsewhere in this discussion. Figure 6 shows the Artemis 5 approach, which differs from Artemis 3 with the inclusion of the gateway and a lunar with the inclusion of gateway and of a lander refueling operation in rectilinear halo orbit. Yep. What do you think the timeline is going to be when they do the 10 to 20 launches? Are we talking 2 to 5 days or once a week? Rapid reuse hired. Probably about a week if SpaceX has their way. Probably less than that. Yeah. Now, here's the thing, guys. I'm going to be very clear. They're showing it this way to show all the launches needed just to get one person to the moon. I can see it coming. The whole thesis of this paper is that that's great. That's all fine and dandy, but that's not that's going to take a while to get this architecture figured out. Now, with SpaceX, I kind of don't I don't agree with that. I think SpaceX, I don't think anything can be stopped. I don't think anything can stop them. I think they'll figure it out. If they succeed in essentially making a C5 that flies to the surface of the moon and back with orbital refueling, oh boy. Oh boy. That then all this doesn't really matter, to be 100% real with you. Yep. There you go. Yeah, see, that was the model that Artemis showed. It's more like this. Yeah, that's all of that just to get 5 people or 2 people for a week stay on the moon. All of that. Yeah, glitched exactly. All of that. You see what I mean about Starship? Glitch, you talk about that Day of Reckoning. You see what I'm talking about? When Starship gets crew rated, you don't need this part. See that part right there? Arguably the most, well, not most expensive, but at least on paper, the most expensive part. You don't need that part anymore. Pretty crazy, huh? That's what I'm talking about. You probably don't even need this part either. You could just do it all with Starship. Which I can tend to say, in its own right, is a very good architecture. This part is a little bit of a, but if they figure out ways to, if they can launch 2-3 times a day, then who cares? It doesn't matter at all. I still would say that doing it the old-fashioned way would probably be a good way for NASA, not necessarily for SpaceX. Artemis 3 Con Ops right here. Yeah, that's not Artemis 3, that's Artemis 5. And yeah, see? This is SLD. This is called the Sustainable Lunar Development Program. It's a second lunar lander. Not the worst idea. I understand for the first missions, but why would it be better to do these Starship HLS Artemis lunar landings with, i.e., not 2, but 12 people, let's say? It'll probably scale up later in the future, Erudite. How could they put a new payload in an HLS that's returned to low Earth orbit? I don't think that HLS has the Delta V to be able to be refueled in LEO, go all the way to the lunar surface, and then come back. Unless SpaceX is aerobrakes, unless they aerobrake Earth with their thermal protection system, which they might do, but then again, HLS doesn't have a thermal protection system either. So from this point in time, you're resupplying HLS. You're resupplying HLS, basically, you're going to have to resupply it in low lunar. And I don't know what that concept of operations looks like. Right? That's why I've always said that a Starship could benefit from a shuttle-style payload bay with an arm. Because, one Starship could come up, take the payload out, put it in an HLS, and then call it a day, right? That makes perfect sense. I guess I don't understand the benefit of a rectilinear halo orbit. Yeah. An engineer. Let's keep reading. We'll get to it. Here, look. Preliminary observations. Compared to the Apollo architecture, the Artemis mission designs are very complicated. They're very complicated. SpaceX's concept of operations for Starship is extremely complicated, and there's a lot of risk to retire. That doesn't mean they shouldn't do it. Just, once again, I love the Artemis program. I love NASA in-house stuff. I want SpaceX to succeed on all fronts because, the only thing better than one super heavy launch vehicle to get to the moon is 2. You know what the only thing better than 2 is? 3, baby. I'm greedy. Feed me. I'm hungry. I want more RS-25s and more Raptors and more stainless steel and more aluminum. Come on, let's go. I'm hungry. And I'm a hungry boy. I eat a lot. I'm sorry. It's true. Anyway. Complexity equates to increased risk to mission success, or worse yet, to crew risk, and should be accepted only when simpler alternatives will not meet mission requirements. 4 with China. Yeah, hey, whatever, as long as we're first. This widely accepted principle of engineering design does not appear to apply to Artemis. From first principles, to put 4 people on the moon should not require significant more total mass and complexity than to execute 2 Apollo-style missions with 2 people each. There are differences, of course. To remain on the surface for 5.5 days is more difficult than to do so for 3 days. Yeah, that's... By the time the Apollo missions were wrapping up, Apollo 17, not a lot of people know, they spent 3 days on the moon. 3 days. Okay. All right. Okay. Hold up for a second here. They spent I want you to ponder that for a second. Like, the need to mention this is pretty crazy. Apollo 17, Gene Cernan and Harrison Schmitt spent 3 days on the moon. Okay? That's ridiculous. That is a lot. That's a lot of time on the surface. Apollo 17 was one of the craziest missions that NASA's ever run, and one of the greatest, in my opinion. Just ponder how difficult that actually is to do, and we were just kind of doing it willy-nilly. Apollo 16 and 17. 17 stayed the longest, but 16 almost stayed 3 days on the moon. Compare that to Apollo 11, which spent 23 hours on the surface. Yeah. EJ, use McDonald's delivery. Okay, a McDonald's delivery would be good, but what about like Amazon delivery? Would that be good? Could we say HLS be used for weeks with all 4 crew after Artemis 5? It's possible, Trey, but I'm really kind of... I think I know where they're going with this, but I'm not sure. I want to keep reading. Wake up. Yep, on the moon. Can you imagine getting 8 hours of sleep and waking up inside of the LEM? It would seem like landing on the moon was a fever dream. Do you know how I know? I've asked Charlie Duke that exact question. That interview is somewhere floating around on the internet somewhere. I had the privilege of meeting Charlie Duke at Space Fest 2019, and I asked him that exact question. I'm like, did you get any sleep on the moon? And he's like, yeah, I got a little bit. I'm like, did you wake up on the LEM like, wait, where am I? And he's like, yeah, pretty much. Yeah, pretty much. Actually, what he said regarding sleep was that, dude, you were so damn tired by the time you landed, like, sleeping wasn't too hard. It wasn't too hard to do. Imagine the smell. You have life support systems constantly circulating. Dude, there's no stale air in there. It probably smelled like a doctor's office. In fact, Charlie Duke hasn't said that, but that's what people that have been to the ISS that I've talked to have said. It smells like a doctor's office, like that sterile environment smell. Like a dentist almost. Anyway. The Saturn V translunar insertion TLI mass for Apollo 17 was approximately 48 metric tons. The presently advertised limit for SLS Block 2 is 46 metric tons. Finally, the lunar poles present a more difficult landing challenge than the Apollo equatorial region landing sites. But at this system level, these differences would not appear to pose as much difficulty or to require as much complexity as the Artemis architectures would imply. Crew risk. The Artemis mission architecture imposes a significant crew risk. An optimal half-day return to the mothership in rectilinear halo orbit is possible only on 6.5-day centers. An urgent abort from the lunar surface can require up to 3.6 days to return to a rectilinear halo orbit. And Orion does not have the capability to leave NRHO to rescue a crew from a lander stranded in a lower orbit. Said that in 2017. Yep. Orion needs a bigger service module. All this complexity makes sense if you see Artemis as what's been stated to be many, many, many times practice for Mars. Touché. I would contend to say, Aqualux, just like I always do, that Gateway is not preparing you for anything to get anywhere near close to Mars, but just putting it out there. Beyond crew risk, the Artemis architecture poses a significant mission risk in 2 very fundamental ways. First, both contractor mission designs require multiple launch, docking, and automated on-orbit cryogenic propellant transfer operations. From the laws of simple statistics, any mission requiring the execution of multiple independent events for its accomplishment will be challenging, even if each individual operation is judged to have a high probability of success. Table 1 illustrates this point. As a simple example, if it's assumed that each operation in a required sequence of events has a 98% chance of being successful, an attempt to execute 15 such events in a row will fail about 25% of the time. Curious. Each of the proposed contractor mission designs requires many more individual operations than offered in this example. Second, both designs will require cryogenic propellant boil-off rates at levels that are, so far, are only theoretically possible. The technology to achieve such levels has never been demonstrated. Well, SpaceX will have that problem figured out in about 6 months. I would say 6 months from this point, December 9th, 2024. Yeah, they'll have that figured out in about 6 months. But that is a point that's still relevant right now. But that window of theoretically possible is closing very, 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 very fast. In traditional program management parlance, this is equivalent to putting a technology readiness level 1 technology in the critical path, something that should never have been done. That's an interesting point. He's not wrong, but that's going to approach TRL 5 very, very fast. Yeah, very fast. In fact, I'd say it's at TRL 2 because they moved propellants around in the header tanks on Flight 3. Or was it Flight 4? I don't remember. Do you think we could build the Mars Base Camp lander design for the moon? Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Blue should make their upper stage into that. It was Flight 3000. Thank you. They did catch a booster. Cumulative reliability of multiple independent events. Single operation reliability. Basically, this says the more steps that you have in your mission architecture, the more likely you're going to have a failure. Apollo itself is a victim of this exact stat. They're probably deriving the stat from Apollo 13, if I had to guess, because they did mention it higher up in the paper. I've seen that video before, Hired. Yeah, it looks ridiculous, right? Counterpoint, how many TRL-1 components were involved in Apollo? Counterpoint to your counterpoint. As little as possible. Oh, I got you there. I got you there. I'm not wrong. I'm not wrong, dude. How long do you think the next crew that will land on the surface will stay? Well, they're trying to get down there for a week, and judging by what I'm hearing from this paper, it's going to be a week whether they like it or not. That's a good point, though, Aqualex. Seriously, that actually is a good point in its own regard. Let's see where they're going with this. I think I know, but just out of curiosity. Regarding the implications of Table 1, it is sometimes suggested that multiple repetitive operations, such as planned for Artemis 3 and Artemis 5 and beyond, do not create a significant mission risk because if a single tanking flight, docking, or propellant transfer operation fails, another can be quickly launched. This view ignores the long history of recovery from spaceflight anomalies, especially if a failure might involve a component or a system that is common to a cruise system. It also ignores the much more extensive history of responses to aircraft incidents, where, in recognition of the fact that failures are often due to a systemic design flaw and are therefore not independent events. A significant failure due to an unknown cause often results in the grounding of an aircraft model until the cause is understood and a remedy is implemented. Thus, because Table 1 assumes independence of events, it offers an upper bound to the mission success probabilities provided. Yeah, that makes sense. As little as possible to accomplish the stated goals, yes, like practicing for Mars. Okay, curious how what about Artemis helps you get to Mars? Let me rephrase that. Even if they just built the Saturn V again, which is arguably the best thing at doing lunar operations that we've ever devised. Let's say they just built a Saturn V. How does that help? What is SLS doing and Orion doing that's in Gateway for that matter? How is that helping us get to Mars? The answer is that it's not. It funds Starship? Yeah, that's fair. That literally doesn't apply to Starship if they can get the FAA straight or remove it completely from spaceflight. Interesting point. Gateway architecture is the exact mission profile Mars will require. Yeah, but the I'm talking about that's correct. I'm talking about the like the actual hardware. What's the PPE and the Halo module going to do to help you get to Mars? It's not. You're going to have to build a whole new transfer vehicle. That's been my entire argument this whole time. I think Gateway being a SAT bus and a HAB module would have been fine if that launched in like 2015 and we were out there using it right now. My argument has been to take the EUS and basically make it into a Skylab style transfer vehicle with Orion and use that as Gateway. That'll help you figure out that whole boil off problem. And it'll also accomplish all the same goals. You get it there in one launch, right? And basically it simplifies your architecture. Constellation didn't plan on doing that, thousands, but either way. I'm ready for the Expanse. When does that get here? Give it about 50 years. Long duration life support testing in a worse radiation environment than LEO? Yeah, but you could do that with something that could actually be fashioned as a transfer vehicle. Even if we took a Gateway, built it in low Earth orbit, it's not getting you anywhere near Mars. I'm sorry, guys, it's not. You're not getting to Mars on solar electric propulsion. That's preposterous. Even Elon would say that's a ridiculous idea. Right? Please see my last thank you. IMO, now NASA is trying to both A, get to the moon quickly, and B, advance the industry tech for the long term. Those two things at the same time is really difficult. More difficult than doing that, one could say. Yeah, we're saving money, though. All right. Sorry, every time I mouse off the screen, it skips around. Okay. Cryogenic propellant boil-off. Of even greater concern is the unsolved problem of controlling cryogenic propellant boil-off for the lander and various tankers and fuel depots required to implement the Artemis mission architecture. Solar heating of the propellant tanks in space causes the propellant to boil, resulting in an increase in internal pressure that must be relieved by venting the tanks before burst pressure is reached. That's correct. That's also the reason why supposedly they shot at Booster 12 when it landed in the ocean, to get it to alleviate pressure and also sink it. We don't know if they shot it for sure, but the bullet holes in it would suggest otherwise. Don't ask me where I found those pictures. No, I'm not showing them to you. This poses numerous problems for any deep space mission design using cryogenic propellants. The lunar lander must be pre-deployed to rectilinear halo orbit, as it makes no sense to launch a crew unless the lander is known to be available. This imposes a significant loiter requirement for the uncrewed lander, which employs cryogenic propellants in both of the selected mission designs. A similar requirement exists for the propellant storage in low Earth orbit for the unknown time required for multiple tanker flights to deliver the required total propellant mass. Finally, the thermal environment to which the lander is exposed on the lunar surface can be worse than space. Something like that, Nova. Is there a reason the propulsion module is specifically a module? Did they need to build a whole new ISS to upgrade it? What do you mean? I'll check it later. Yeah, 12 was caught. Booster 13. You know what I meant. Well, with my idea for Gateway, Dave, you could do cycler orbits with your EUS Skylab. Yeah, that... Constellation wouldn't build a transfer vehicle to Mars. It would, 1000, but not in the way that I said. The way that I said is completely different. A much more simple architecture than even Constellation. I mean, Gateway is being built like the ISS, common berthing mechanisms and all. It's being built. I mean, it's ISS derived if that's the point you're trying to make. But I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure where you're going with that. But anyway, the present experience with cryogenic propellant maintenance in space is largely with the Centaur 3 upper stage on the Atlas V launch vehicle. Flight history for the uninsulated Centaur 3 shows an average loss of about 2.4% a day for liquid oxygen and 15% a day for hydrogen. Yeah, hydrogen likes to be gas. Model results indicate that a three-layer MLI could reduce this to about 1.5 and 5 a day for LOX and liquid hydrogen, respectively. Theoretical results for active refrigeration indicate the possibility of achieving boil-off rates as low as 0.1% a day. Flight history for the LOX methane propellant combination is not yet available. Give it some time. Table 2 shows the effect of these various assumptions on long-term deep space mission designs using cryogenic propellants. I think the point Oculix is trying to make is that just because Gateway's PPM is solar electric propulsion now doesn't mean it has to stay that way. They could swap it out for something with more oomph later. Yeah, but they won't. That's the thing. They won't. They won't. Look at NASA's long-term architecture, their long-term plans. They won't. That's what I'm trying to tell you. They won't. Why wouldn't you just work on that right now? I mean, I'm telling you, look at their integrated architecture over the next 15 years. They're not going to. They don't have any plans to do that. What the heck is Gateway going to teach you? It's going to teach you nothing. What we should do is take that Halo module and put it on an EUS and use that as Gateway instead. Just putting it out there. And you know that how? It's just they're integrated. Look at their long-term plans. It's pretty simple. They don't have any plans to do that. They have plans to use Gateway in its existing format out to Artemis 12. That's it. There's nothing after that. That architecture doesn't exist. So if you want to say, oh, well, EJ, that architecture doesn't exist, they might do that in the future. Yeah, sure. Artemis 12 is like slated for like 2037 or something like that. So the whole impetus for the design that I'm telling you is that this gets this done relatively quick. How long has NASA's long-term plans ever stuck? Incorrect. It will teach you how to run the Mars profile. So, Aqualix, I just want to be very clear here. You're telling me that saying their long-term architecture doesn't show this, and then you said right after that how often do their long-term plans ever stick? So if that's the case, you're telling me that it's more likely for them to deviate from their long-term plans to pull a rabbit out of their hat with some type of propulsion system for a transfer vehicle than it is to not do that. That's what you're telling me? That's thin, man. That's real thin. That's real thin, dude. That's real thin, homie. I'm sorry. Yeah, I suppose you're right, but that's thin, man. You know it's thin. Come on. You know that's thin. You know what? Just make a giant Bigelow module. Bigelow doesn't exist anymore, Firework. And have that be Gateway instead of trying to go through the whole assemble Gateway and lunar thing. Just inflate the thing to the size that we need. Yeah, that would be really good if Bigelow existed. In your opinion, is it worth it to service Hubble or build a new budget Hubble? Well, the budget Hubble is the Roman satellite, Luca, for the most part. But I guess I'm more annoyed with the fact that we would rather let the thing die eventually over time, because that guarantees you science in the short term, than go up there and risk fixing it, which could brick the satellite for a much longer future. I think that's symptomatic of a much bigger problem at NASA. No Article 5, but that's cool. Just send a Starship at Skylab 2. I'm down with that. That's fine. Okay. It's clear from Table 2 that a 60 to 90 day loiter requirement for a cryogenic lander is untenable with present technology. Once again, SpaceX will have that figured out. I really, like, once again, you know, we're trying to connect the dots for the future, but I'm pretty sure their whole architecture fails miserably if they can't mitigate boil off. And I'm pretty sure Elon is not the kind of guy to fail miserably at something and then take that sitting down, you know what I mean? Even a month would be impractical. By itself, a 5-day stay on the lunar surface, assuming the thermal environment to be no worse than in space, would pose a significant design challenge for a cryogenic propellant lander. The ability to maintain cryogenic propellants in proper condition for long periods of time and space is a critical technology for future space development. But to assume that it will be available for near-term lunar missions is unwise. It's not the craziest thing. I mean, it is unwise because it's not a guarantee. That's why I said go with what you know. But let's see where they're going with this. Yeah, I get it, Aqualix. I get what you're saying. But why wouldn't? But my way does that quicker, and it's not risque at all, and it's kind of like what the Apollo program was going to do, which is a really smart idea. You'd be smart to follow that architecture. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Let's finish reading the article. Is that also assuming hydrogen, which is colder and tries to boil off much more than LCH4? Yeah, hydrogen boils off really, yeah, it likes to be gas. Getting to the lunar surface. This is a complex issue that is more important to explore carefully. To that end, it is helpful to examine Figure 7, NASA's schematic diagram showing the approximate delta-v requirements for various paths to and from the lunar surface following 3.2 kilometers a second translunar injection change in velocity for departure from low Earth orbit. That requirement is common to all subsequent mission phases and will not be further considered here. Also ignored are variations in the translunar injection requirement to the 18-year cycle of lunar orbit plane inclination from 18.4 to 28.6 relative to the ecliptic plane. The moon is in an eccentric orbit, guys. Yep. Well, not eccentric. It's inclined, excuse me. It is eccentric too, but not as much as you might think. Excuse me, I misspoke. The present focus is on options for reaching the surface from an inbound Earth-Moon trajectory and for returning home. RJ, 55 months. Thank you very much. Hey, just heard about the Space and Rocket Review thing. Are we discussing the space between your ears yet? Yeah. We'll be working on the funny joke segment later. Yeah, that implying that this is not the funny joke segment right now. So you can tell your jokes here. Hey man, you're gonna dish it out. I'm dishing it right back. I'm just putting it out there, dude. Okay. Only split missions are discussed here, i.e. missions in which a crew return vehicle is left in a lunar orbit while the lander descends from that orbit to the lunar surface and returns it for crewed vehicle rendezvous and Earth return. The split can occur if both vehicles are injected into the same lunar orbit as for Apollo, or because they are deployed separately from Earth. But wherever it occurs, the separation generates critical operational constraints. Basically, the time that the lander gets out there can't be too far away from the time that you send people out there. It has to be relatively close. Ooh, math. Yep, delta V maps to the moon. Hear me out, put a Bagger 288 on the moon. I'm in. That's something I'll get behind. How are we going to get it there? You should look at the map more. The lowest rung of the red ladder represents a descent directly to the lunar surface from translunar coast, and the lowest rung of the blue ladder represents a return to Earth directly from the lunar surface. While this technique was used for the landings of Surveyor in the 1960s, it is inapplicable to split missions such as Apollo or Artemis, where an Earth return vehicle, like Orion, remains in a parking orbit while a separate lander descends to the surface. Yep. Yeah, Apollo can't take that route because the CSM. Can't land unless you want to land the CSM on the moon, which is something that they actually experimented with. One of the Apollo architecture, the trade study for lunar architectures, basically combined the CSM and the LEM into one vehicle and sent it directly to the surface, which is that's a vibe. It's a vibe. It's a vibe. Yeah. Yeah, that's unlikely. Apollo took this route right here, equatorial low lunar, and then the LEM went down to the surface from there. Similar observation applies to the highest rung of the inbound ladder, which represents the family of ballistic lunar transfers, BLT. Yeah, SpaceX actually launched something on a ballistic lunar transfer, the KPLO mission. Yeah, the Korean Polar Lunar Orbiter. Yeah, that used a ballistic transfer. The ballistic transfer is basically when you fly it on the lowest delta V orbit as possible. Basically where you use the stage, as much of the stage to basically get it so your apogee is the highest right when the moon comes by, so the moon can pull you in. And you use the precession of the moon to actually circularize, or at least mitigate your delta V requirements. That's 115 meters a second for cargo only. That works. That's proven. KPLO launched, what was that, last year? 2 years ago? I think it was 2 years ago. Yeah. Ballistic lunar transfers. Absolutely a thing. Super smart idea. But it only really works if you need a long transit time. That also would have been bad for Apollo and is bad for Artemis because there's those whole people on board. You'll run out of oxygen before you get to the moon. Yeah, you gotta balance these mission requirements with not suffocating your crew. That's important. Don't want to do that. Good safety tip, Egon. Yep. As noted in Figure 7, these trajectories may prove useful for future cargo delivery, but are not of interest for human missions due to their prohibitively long transfer times. The other lunar landing options considered in Figure 7 go through low lunar as a parking orbit, used here as a general concept that can refer to several kinds of orbits. In this sense, both rectilinear halo orbit and low lunar orbit can be parking orbits, and there can be more than one depending on that architecture. Low lunar is a special case in this discussion because it's common to all architectures considered here. Unlike Apollo, in the Artemis architecture, the Orion crew vehicle remains in rectilinear halo and does not itself transfer to low lunar. However, the Artemis landers stage through low lunar to set up the descent to the selected near-polar landing site, and similarly on ascent for proper phasing for the return to rectilinear. So Artemis goes up here and then goes down here to down here. NRHO, global LLO, down to the moon. Instead of your staging point being here, your staging point is up here. Why do this? Why do that at all? Well, the original reasons for deciding to do this were to, as Aqualex was saying a little bit earlier, this helps you work on long duration stays in deep space, and also gives you an access point to the moon, albeit a higher delta V access point, but it does get you there. I don't necessarily mind the idea of Gateway. I just think the Gateway vehicle, the vehicle that's designed to prepare you to work in deep space, should probably also be designed to get you into deep space. You can kill two birds with one stone if you did that. Just putting it out there. Hey, Pat. What's going on? All of NASA's choices make more sense once you think about them as once bit, twice shy, where each program axing another is a bite. Yeah, Aqualex, I get it. I understand that. I'm saying that's a really bad way of thinking about it. This paper will... Just hear me out. You're not wrong. I get it. I understand what you're saying. Yep. Okay. The choice of parking orbit inclination, the angle at which it crosses the lunar equator, constrains the allowable landing locations because it corresponds to the highest latitude over which the lander passes. Further, because once established, the orbital plane is fixed in inertial space, neglecting small perturbations that are not relevant here. The selection of a parking orbit also constrains certain arrival, landing, and departure conditions. Below are summarized some of the key features and constraints associated with the various options. All right. Let's get to the point here. Yeah. Oh, yep. Staging through rectilinear. Okay. The dual launch lunar landing architecture. The approach proposed here employs two SLS missions launched from Earth to low lunar, each augmented with a presently existing, though soon to be out of production, Centaur 3 upper stage to be used for lunar orbit insertion? SLS Block 2 cargo variant, 46 metric tons to translunar injection, launches a payload consisting of an uncrewed, fully fueled, two-stage storable propellant lander, so a hypergol, and a partially fueled Centaur 3 lunar orbit insertion stage. The Centaur 3 injects the 32 metric ton lander into a polar low lunar to await rendezvous with its crew in Orion. There's no cryogenic propellant storage limit. Lander station keeping delta V is less than 100 meters a second a year. At that time, the Orion crew vehicles launched on an SLS Block 2 crew variant, 43 metric tons to TLI, also with the Centaur 3 lunar orbit insertion stage. For insertion of the fully fueled Orion into low lunar, followed by rendezvous with and crew transfer to the lander. The lander descends to the surface, and the crew executes its mission. No fixed surface stay is required to permit return to the crew vehicle in low lunar for equatorial or polar region missions. For polar region missions, the window for Earth return is constrained by the combination of allowable surface stay and orbit loiter, and the Orion maneuvering reserve up to a maximum of 1,350 meters a second. For mid-latitude missions, the same observations about low lunar orbit loiter for return to Earth apply, and there are additional constraints on surface stay to accommodate crew vehicle rendezvous as previously discussed. The crew returns to low lunar orbit. Basically, he's saying with this architecture, you can go anywhere on the moon. That's what those last couple of points said. The crew returns to low lunar in the lander ascent stage for rendezvous with and transfer to Orion, following which the ascent stage executes a controlled surface disposal maneuver if desired. The crew returns to Earth at a time consistent with Orion low lunar orbit loiter capability and maneuvering reserve. This approach is based on the observation that the lander design poses the most challenging requirement and should drive the mission design. It did for Saturn V. Given the approximately 315-second specific impulse attainable with storable propellants, it is likely advantageous for the lander to carry only the propellant required for descent and ascent, which, for that reason, is assumed here. The use of a lunar orbit insertion stage also decouples the lander design from the method of inserting it into lunar orbit, a potentially attractive feature. Finally, the lunar orbit insertion stage offers potential additional value as discussed below. Ja, what's up, man?
Go at throttle up.
66 months, you're back. And Rizik had a 35-month resub in there too. Guys, for some reason, this thing is not working. Hang on, let me try to see if we can get some audio here. I'm not getting audio, but I appreciate it. You're back. Where were you? Everything okay? This approach is based on the observation that the lander design. Okay, yep. For liquid oxygen, liquid hydrogen lander design, the trade on gross launch mass likely favors an integrated design, with the lander carrying its own lunar orbit insertion delta V propellant. However, as discussed above, it is unrealistic from a systems engineering perspective to impose a significant loiter requirement, almost almost always a feature of a split mission on a cryogenic element, even if the gross mass trade favors an integrated lander design. Ooh, I don't know how I feel about stacking a Centaur on top of a 2-stage MMH N204 lander. Something load requirements. Laugh, man, just been focusing on myself. Quit alcohol now, 4 years on the 19th. Way better off than I was after a nasty divorce several years ago. Oh, I'm sorry, man. I'm glad you're on the up and up, though. That's good. Yeah, and swearing off the stuff is probably a good idea. Distractions are not needed. Take it from somebody that gets distracted by everything. Yeah, that's probably not a good idea. But good call, man. 4 years. Good for you. Does the VR headset have speakers? I don't know, Mutter. Here, let me ping Jaws resub and we'll see if I get it.
Discovery, go at
I
throttle
heard
up.
it that time. Have you guys been hearing it? I hope so. Yeah, I don't think Centaur can push 30 tons without a load reactor, Fish. That's why I never really considered it in my architecture. The truth of the matter is that Orion needs a better service module. This service module is butthole. Even if you just want to do what like their baseline stuff, Orion not being able to get down to low lunar is a huge mission risk, regardless of architecture. Even with HLS and SLD, that's a really big, you know? The headset is probably set to turn off after X amount of time with no sound. That's exactly what it is, what it's doing, Mutter, but sometimes it just doesn't play. Sometimes it just doesn't do. Either way. I'm not sure I like this architecture either, guys. This is not... That's... I like the lander. The lander's a good idea, but using a Centaur? Yeah... Centaur 3. Why does everybody insist on using stages that ULA makes that they're not going to be making by the time this architecture gets around to use as their stages to get things places? This has a Centaur on top of an EUS, make, which interestingly enough was what Saturn V was going to do. I'm serious. The Saturn V was going to have 4 stages in it. It was going to have the S1C, the S2, right? S3, and then S4 on top of it. They ended up getting rid of S3 and opted for a restartable S4 instead. They were basically going to take a Saturn 1B, or Saturn 1's upper stage and put that on top of the S4. So it would have been S1, S2, S4, S4B, and then S4 on top of that, and then everything on top of that. They figured out that that's a dumb idea. You shouldn't do that. You can just make your third stage a little bit bigger, and that'll get you where you need to go. Interestingly enough. Yeah, Arcalex, I mean, the gateway stuff I understand, but I just... Dude, even doing this, 2 SLS launches, you're dealing with too many cutouts in SLS's launch capability. This is circumventing the entire thing that I'm talking about. I kind of disagree with Mike on this, but then again, what do I know? I think SLS needs to be, the upper stage for SLS needs to be redesigned. It needs to be rebaselined. Or, I mean... Or use SLS for straight cargo and use SLS for straight cargo and put Orion on New Glenn or something. That significantly reduces your amount of cutouts and capabilities here. But either way, guys, a multi-launch architecture, that's going to be harder to coordinate. I don't see how... I mean, 2 launches are certainly going to be less than like 25 launches just to get people down to the surface. The whole point of this is expediency. But you want the most expedient thing that you can do is up here at the top. What I'm telling you is that, see this right here? Just redesign that and put it on top of an SLS core stage, please. It's never going to happen, but that's the most expedient. That's pretty much what he's saying, right? Like, just take this S4B, LEM, CSM, and just, you could even take the CSM part, just put Orion there instead, right? And just do that. That's, I still say that even if you decided to do that, right, and scrap the EUS and scrap all that, right, like, you could still probably get there faster than most. This is brilliant, but I like this. Isn't their whole point is simpler, safer, using stuff that we got already except for the lander and get there sooner? That's the whole idea, Bob. Yep. I feel like this architecture would have been awesome if it was greenlit in 2018, but not now. Making a new hypergolic lander only makes sense if you do it before you make your cryogenic one. Yeah, Bill, I would still argue that having one as a backup would probably be a good idea. Just in case. I agree that it is a little bit far at this point to do that. Like, remember, I've talked about that point of no return. The point of no return is almost there for the lander and stuff, but I still, even at this point with Starship's matured design, I still probably would want NASA to do an in-house lander. It's a good way to hedge your bets against future space sustainability, and it also gets you there relatively quick, because an NTO MMH lander is what we know. We have plenty of experience doing that. Yeah, there you go. They have an S4B in a building in Florida sitting around collecting dust. Maybe we should use that. Maybe we should just build more of those. Just saying. The multi-step transfers is a big risk for emergency situations. Even if it's getting practice managing, it's a firm requirement. I think the best thing for developing confidence in the profile would be to run it like it's already planned, but have direct returns built in for emergencies. Maybe. Yeah, here's some math behind this. I'm going to read the rest of this off stream, dudes. Okay, interesting. Let's see what people are saying about this. So, Eric is the one that reposted this, which is funny because that gives the architecture that he fundamentally doesn't like some traction, which is all right. Former NASA Administrator Mike Griffin recently released an updated version of his dual-launch Artemis plan to get humans to the moon. It relies on 2 SLS Block 2 launches and a lander that doesn't exist. Okay. Hard for me to process that this is the same man that helped us form SpaceX 23 years ago. Welcome back, Constellation program. Not quite. I have to say the British version of the Dead Parrot sketch is a lot funnier. Not sure it works with the lunar landing architecture. Could they build more of those? Dudes, I'll be honest with you. I think we could build a Saturn V with modern manufacturing methods. Sure. Yeah, I think it could be done. A friction stir welded Saturn V, utilizing additive manufacturing for your propulsion to lower the costs. Yeah, it could do it. Yeah, that would be pretty good, man. And then, especially if you were able to utilize like carbon fiber vehicle stage adapter, you could take a lot of launch costs out of that thing. That'd be pretty good. That'd be pretty good, man. That'd be pretty good. Your big thing, there's 3 big things that stick out. The lander, obviously. The lander would probably be the big one. Rebuilding something like the LEM would probably take the most amount of time. And obviously F1 propulsion and J2 propulsion. Those would take the longest amounts of time. But the crazy thing is to me, guys, is that if you approach that like how SpaceX approaches Starship, you could really make some
Discovery,
progress pretty
go at
quickly.
throttle up.
I still can, my 10-year, $30 billion rule still applies here. Even if you're grinding it out at SpaceX levels of speed or Apollo levels of speed, it still applies, but you can make a pretty mean Saturn V. I'm talking like a baseline of like 150 to Leo with upgraded, with like the Saturn V. You guys got to remember, the Saturn V was MIG welded together. It was MIG welded together, dudes. It was some dude with a MIG welder welding aluminum panels together. A stir welded Saturn V would probably shed like 2,000 pounds of welding rod. Straight up. Like, yeah. Straight up. The additive manufacturing might be the key to overcoming things that were hand buildable but not doable with CNC. Yeah, dude, for sure. That's why I mentioned it. You're exactly right. Yeah. You take the same method that they did with the RL10, going from the RL10C, C5 or something to the RL10CX, right? You take that exact same mentality and apply it to the F1 and the J2, and you could make J2s for a pretty low cost, or F1s. Yeah. I would switch the F1 to an ablator nozzle with an open cycle, or switch it to a closed cycle with an ablator nozzle, whatever. Whatever works. F1B, if you will. Take what you learned from the RS-68 and apply that to an F1. And then with the J2, use what you know with the RS-25s. It's funny because RS-25s are a derivative, a distant relative of the J2. 51 Merlin 1Ds. Is that how many you'd need, Bill? Hold on. What if we made Saturn V super heavy with Merlin 1Ds? How many of those would you need? Let me just check. Oh, you'd need 45 Merlins. You'd need 45 Merlin 1Ds at the bottom of an S1C to get this to work correctly. Yeah. Well, actually, the Saturn let me check something. So, 35, not 45. Yeah. 35. Yeah. What if we give the Saturn 1C BE4s? I wouldn't do that. You need the energy of the Carolox. You would only need 16-ish Raptors. But you use SRBs. Yeah, that's why SLS exists, because that's what they decided. Interesting. B3U upper stages. Well, Hellfish, you would need to make something comparable to the S2, you would need 10 BE3Us. Yeah, you would need 10 of them in an upper stage. You might be able to get away with 9. That's 4,500 kilonewtons. You'd need 5 meganewtons coming from your second stage to be somewhat comparable to Saturn V. We just don't have an upper stage engine that's capable of producing that much power, unless you wanted to switch your second stage to Carolocks and use 5 Merlin 1 vacuums. I mean... Why don't we just use the old shuttle tank and engines? Yeah, that's a good idea. B3U is 765. Did they uprate it? Oh, I was thinking into account 500 kilonewtons of thrust from a B3U. It's been a commonly known fact that it's easier to make a new rocket nowadays than to try and remake Saturn V for a reason, but that reason is starting to get caught up with modern tech. Yeah. 755 at 445. Yeah, SLS is not Ares 5, Bill. It's a clean sheeted design. It's a clean sheeted SDLV. It's kind of like halfway between Ares 5 and Direct. Which, yeah. They did a study into various configurations, and one of them was basically a 1-to-1 modernized Saturn V. That design was clearly the best study in almost every way, but they chose the shuttle-derived one we got instead to please contractors. Why not just have those contractors retool and make the same thing? It's like, oh, the contractor, we can only make one type of rocket motor. We can't make another one. I'll pay you to make another one. No, we can't do it. Speaking about old tech, I've been watching some NASA documentaries in Dune. Mercury and Gemini was like, you really went to space in that? With that strapped to your butt? Dude, the Mercury capsule is basically a seat with some SRBs attached to the back and a heat shield. Yeah. Glitched, it would be like somebody launching to space on an Electron rocket. Mercury was nuts. Absolutely bananas. Gemini was not that much less crazy, dude. Good stuff, man. Good stuff. Yeah. All right, dudes. So, I'm going to read more of that article after work here. But it's getting up to about 8:30. That was a good bit of space news there. For sure. Sorry, I've been flopping over. Let me get back. Vacuum optimized F1 engine. Well, the M1 was a thing, Trey, for sure. For sure. This stuff is... Oop. I just heard myself an echo there for a second. Headset shut off again. Yuck at 117-month resub. Thanks, man. Dude, this thing sucks. I hate this. I hate that this thing times out. Oh, you know what? I got a solution to this problem. Let me unmute Starbase Live. And then we have the nice, sultry noises of the Rio Grande Valley. And trucks driving by. No, Tessa, this solves that problem. Boca Chica ASMR. Yeah, now the headset will never shut off because it always has sound. Damn, why didn't I think of this? Anyway, I don't know. What do you guys think? What do you think about that architecture? I don't mind. I like Mike Griffin. A lot of my theories about spaceflight are based off of his kind of programs and how they worked. But what do you think? Are we too late? Is it too late? Should NASA just build a couple of more SLSs and call it a day? Personally, I'm not too keen on that one, to be honest with you. But nobody can deny the onslaught that is coming from commercial space in the near future. Potentially exciting times. I would say exciting times, more than not exciting times. I'm trying to get back into the news of making space news fun, because I feel like over the last month, just on a quick side note, I feel like over the last month it's been very cynical. And you know what? I'm kind of sick of doing that, dude. Griffin's plan is worse. Dude, putting a Centaur 3 on top of a lander, like, wait, what? Whoa. Whoa. I think it would be less complicated to upgrade Orion's service module to have the 3 kilometers of Delta V needed to get to low lunar and then build the lander. Like, you're proposing putting a Centaur 3 on top of SLS. It will not be able to take the load. You'd have to build some type of load reactor out of the universal stage adapter. I don't really think that that's the wisest decision. You could do it, sure, no problem. But I think the truth is that we got to go over to the Europeans and we have to have them uprate the service module. But in order to do that, we have to start making AJ-10s again. Remember that Orion right now is still using leftover shuttle orbiter maneuvering systems engines. They're using AJ-10 190s that were taken off of Discovery Atlantis and Endeavour. We only have a certain amount of those before you have to re-baseline the service module with a new engine anyway. Might as well upgrade it now. Why design mission architecture around using end-of-life hardware? The reason why they did that was because all the new hardware got the plug pulled on it, and this was it was a visceral reaction to keeping jobs in congressional districts because some bonehead decided to pull the plug on the entire thing and was hoping there'd be no repercussion for that. I've said it once, I'll say it many times, and I'm going to conclude this space news this way. I'm trying to keep it positive, but if you try to play political football with NASA, you're going to get bit. I don't like people that do that. It's really, really uncool. But either way, what do you guys think? If you're watching this on a YouTube VOD, comment it down there. I see all the comments. I check them every day. I feel so dirty doing that, Twitch. But also, talk to me. I'm not gonna lie. I check the YouTube comments when I take my morning dump. So if you're watching this, leave a comment. If you see a reply to me, I was probably taking a dump when I said it. But that is the great. It's a good pot for thinking. Okay. Figured to be honest. Someone get Isaacman on the phone. I'd love to see a Saturn V launch in person. Dice, I'm with you, man. I'm with you. That would be sick. I think we could get away with just more SLS launches, but modernized Saturn V would be, that'd be pretty good. See, last, personally, I think the lander should be as small as possible, with the HABs landed or dropped off onto the surface to actually be the living quarters instead of the lander. I guess. Fun fact, the AJ-10 was originally made for the Vanguard rocket. It was first made before NASA as an organization existed. Yeah, so was the F-1. Not a lot of people know that either, Bill, but yeah, cool fun facts. I thought about it more and I hate it more. It's just repeating Apollo, which wasn't the point of this project. But the whole impetus for the paper is that we're racing against China, self-admittedly from Bill. If you're racing against China, now you're adding political expediency into this equation. Wisp, that's something that I said was not a good idea. The space race gave us great strides. It leapt us. We jumped into the future. We took that giant leap into the future. And then what? What happened right after that? We tripped and fell on our face. Space races are not tenable. It'd be good to race China, and that's good to maybe get the ball rolling, but that's really not a long-term solution. Mike Griffin's entire paper right there, he said, well, if it's gonna be out of expediency, we should do it this way. You said it was out of expediency. Bill Nelson said in that Artemis interview where he delayed Artemis, ironically. Is it political expediency or is it not? Mike, in his paper, and I agree with him, contends to say that why should it be around political expediency? We should just go to space. NASA pioneering the technologies to be able to extend our dexterity into the solar system will make us bajillions of dollars. I mean, if you want to look at it like that, it'll make us bajillions of dollars. You're expanding the capitalistic market into a near unimaginable system of growth. If we want to talk about it like that, if we want to reduce, I mean, personally, I think we should do it for exploration purposes and to get a better understanding of the universe. But hey, we could do both of those things. What do you think SpaceX is doing? Right? Like, it's not a bad idea. We should do both of those things. Do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Anyway. All right. Workers' time? Once again, if you're watching this on a YouTube VOD, comment down there. I would love to have a discussion with you about this. What do you think? Do you think Mike's an idiot? Do you think that's a good idea? Do you think NASA should have their own in-house program? I mean, come on. All right, stop typing. I know the overwhelming majority of people are like, no, NASA shouldn't do that. NASA shouldn't do that. Well, let's talk about it. Let's talk about space, baby. Launch my payloads with me. Are we done? We're done. Okay, cool. Cool. Banned. Banned. What was the question? Ben, go a little bit back in the VOD and look at the paper that I discussed. Here, I'll link you to the tweet, basically, which is the gist of the topic of conversation. All right, cool. Yeah, I think that's enough. All right, it's time for workers. Stick around. We got workers and resources on the Twitch end. If you're on the YouTube end, I'm going to jog the VOD. So the VODs are broken up so you don't have to go shifting through an entire VOD to find the space news segment. So stand by for a small loss of signal. This one's not going to be as quick as the other one. About a 5-minute jog to jog the VOD here. If you're on Twitch, just chill. We're going to play some workers, man. Play some workers. Some workers, dog. All rise for the Bakalaka Dakistani anthem. All right. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this space news. I'll see you guys again for the space news tomorrow, but we still got workers coming up, so stick around. We'll be here.